Good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting on Monday, May 24th, 2021, 7 p.m. Council chambers for the Town Council, remote participation by the public. Calling this meeting to order pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town Council is being conducted via hybrid remote participation only. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted in the council chambers. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192 or by the remote information noted below. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website at www.ci.southbridge.ma.us as soon as we are able to. A roll call vote will be required for all votes taken on this order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Catrona.
Present.
Councillor Daniel.
Present.
Councillor Dow.
Present.
Councillor Jovan.
Present.
Councillor Lazo.
Present.
Councillor Marchetti.
Present.
Councillor Ryan.
Present.
And Councillor Steves.
All members present. Council Steves is participating via remote participation. Consider and accept the Town Council minutes of May 10th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point. Joseph Cohen, the landscape architect for the Veterans Initiative. Cohen is spelled C-O-A-N. It's throughout. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just for my announcement, agenda item number 10, it's F in fair, it's F-A-R-E, not fair as in like a fair contract, but fair as in you pay a fare. That's it.
Oh, okay. There you go. Any other errors, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, roll call to accept as amended.
Councillor Catrona.
Yes.
Councillor Daniel.
Yes.
Councillor Dow.
Yes.
Councillor Jovan.
Yes.
Councillor Lazo.
Yes.
Councillor Marchetti.
Yes.
Councillor Ryan.
Yes.
Councillor Steves. Yes. And Councillor Adams.
Yes.
Chairman's announcements. Just a couple of announcements. Just again, a reminder to all residents of Southbridge that the polling location has temporarily changed due to the vaccination center being located at the current community center. I know I received a postcard. I don't know if everybody else. It should have gone out to all registered voters for the change of polling place for the upcoming election. The polling place will be Southbridge Middle High School, 132 Torrey Road. It's both in English and in Spanish. I'd like to thank the town clerk's office for putting that out. A follow-up to that as well, while it was not required due to the fact that we had to change the polling location and to ensure that all voters in the town of Southbridge have an opportunity to cast their votes as conveniently as possible. The town of Southbridge is doing early voting that will take place in the town hall. The early voting will start this week on Thursday, May 27th, between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. On Friday, May 28th, from 8 a.m. to noon. On Tuesday, June 1st, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. On Wednesday, June 2nd, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. On Thursday, June 3rd, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And on Friday, June 4th, from 8 a.m. to noon. That was a vote by this council unanimously to make sure that all residents have the opportunity to cast their ballots at the upcoming town election. Again, we had a school committee resignation. We had also a resignation from the planning board, so interested parties can contact the town manager's office. The one position on the Southbridge School Committee became vacant prior to the notice for the election, or subsequent to the notice for election, so therefore could not be placed on the ballot, so there will be another open position on the school committee, and as well as the planning board. And there is also a number of vacancies on certain other boards and committees. If anybody wishes to take the opportunity to serve the town, be part of the process. I do see a lot of things out on social media where people have a lot of discussion about roads and businesses in town. This is your opportunity to come and be part of the process to make sure that we have a better Southbridge. So we welcome everybody's input and their service to the town of Southbridge, so feel free to come forward on that. In regards to the COVID-19 situation in town, today the Emergency Operations Center conducted what we have determined to be the final Emergency Operations Center meeting to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to thank all of the people that were involved in the Emergency Operations Center. It was a privilege to be the chairman of the council and the chair as the head of government for emergencies with the group of individuals that we had. I don't want to forget anyone, but specifically the individuals that participated at the beginning of the pandemic weekly, then monthly, and then back more regularly as it ramped up again. To the Chief Woodson and Chief Norman, the police and fire chief, we are fortunate in this community to have two capable and quality chiefs to lead departments. Chief Norman served as the emergency management director during this pandemic, and Chief Woodson and he both were the unified incident command. We declared the emergency back on March 20th of 2020. And since then, we've been dealing as the Emergency Operations Center. Also, I'd like to thank our Director of Inspections, Health, Andrew Pelletier, for his work during this time. It was very stressful at times as we dealt with the numbers in town. Also, we'd like to thank the partnership that we have with Harrington Memorial Hospital. Specifically, I'd like to thank Harry Lemieux from Harrington Memorial Hospital, and then later on, Jason Osborne, who became key partners in our ability to mitigate the pandemic and also develop an emergency dispensing site at the community center. I'd also like to thank the town managers, both Ron Sanangelo at the beginning, because he was the town manager that provided assistance during the beginning of this, as well as town manager Michael McCall, who came towards the end of the pandemic and assisted in getting the community center up with a lot of backing from the town. I'd like to thank Dr. Villar and Dr. Farrick for their work in the Emergency Operations Center, as well as everybody in the school system, especially Councilor Adams, who was doing the translation for us? Deanna, and the superintendent's office. Thank you very much for that work. We were able to put information out on our town's website, both in English and in Spanish for our residents. Yvonne in the town hall's office worked to make sure that that information went up, and we thank her. Our school department managed to end the school year, and under difficult circumstances, and I think when we look back, we were able to develop or provide education to the schools, and we were one of the students, and we were one of the only schools in the area that were open since September for K through 5 and hybrid for high school. And so really kudos to the school department for that. Department of Public Works, Heather Blakey, was a key integral part of this and also assisted with our vaccination center. The fire department and police departments are also fortunate to have Deputy Chief Hulick and Deputy Chief Dingy, who, because of the work that the two chiefs had to do in addition to their regular duties, managed their departments. Also, I'd like to thank our emergency preparedness liaison, TJ Edwards, from the fire department. There's a lot of paperwork that has to go in with MEMA and FEMA, so he was on board. To the finance department, Karen Harnois and Melissa, thank you very much for the work that you did. And finally, Council Adams, I'd like to thank him because he did above and beyond the work to make sure that our public information got out into the community via Facebook Live, him and Chief Woodson, as well as Jasmine Rivas, who provided translation. So it really was a community effort to make sure that we brought up-to-date information. There's a lot more people I think that we could thank, and I'd be remiss if I try to thank everyone. Ed Moore was on the call today, and we talked about the partnership that the town of Southbridge had with our community. I believe, and I know that we were a model for other communities in the way that we handled this pandemic, set up a vaccination site, and as we look through the next month or so, we'll see that probably vaccination site winding down. Also, Roland Larochelle from the Board of Health, who came on later on. So thank you all. I truly do thank you, and the community thanks you for all the hard work. And with that, that's all I have. Councilor Catrona?
Just want to, can callers 3 and 5 identify themselves, or can you mute?
I can read them.
I hear background noise.
Yeah. I think I can mute them.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, so I'm sorry, before I turn it over to the town manager, we did have a discussion that I anticipate, again, our EOC has closed. The governor has announced that the state of emergency will be terminated as of June 15th. At the next meeting on June 7th, we'll have an agenda item. So to recommend that the town council ends the local state of emergency to be completed in conjunction with the Massachusetts state of emergency. At that point, I think we have not received any guidance as to the emergency declarations as to remote participation in meetings. So we'll have to keep an eye out and to see if that continues, because that was an emergency order by the governor. So we'll keep an eye on that. So I anticipate going forward as of June 7th that we will open this up as regular meetings to anybody in the public that will come in. We may do a hybrid for some people in the public, but going forward, that would be the case. And we'll discuss also the change of because we did take a vote to do remote, so we'll probably take a vote to discontinue that practice, and then look to discuss remote participation by boards, because that would become a formal policy through general government. We've discussed that before, but kind of got through the wayside because of the pandemic. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should have, with Deanna, I should have said Sarah as well, who provided a lot of insight on the information side. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we meet regularly with staff. I meet with them prior to our staff meeting, prior to our council meetings. We did go over the fact that the masks will be rescinded as of this Saturday, so we will be following state guidelines. I've talked to Mr. Pelletier about this, and we will be going forward once the end of the state of emergency with our in-person meetings. We'll be continuing to look for guidance from the state on whether or not we can, how we'll be able to conduct hybrid meetings if anybody wants to, because the quorum rules that were essentially abated or accepted to during the state of emergency will go away, so we will now have to have in-person quorums. That doesn't preclude a town from having a hybrid meeting, but we'll have to look if somebody wanted to hold a meeting entirely remote going forward. Right now, that wouldn't happen under the rules after June 15th. But I would anticipate business as usual prior to COVID in the coming weeks. The only change may be Margaret Morrissey at the library had indicated, because of the high volume of young patrons, that a lot of library directors are looking at whether or not they may ask their respective communities to keep some type of mask order until more of the children are vaccinated under 12. But I will keep the council posted, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Citizens Forum, is there anyone from the audience that wishes to address the council on any item that's not on the agenda this evening?
Mr. Chairman,
State your name and your address, please.
Dave Smith, 145 Ridge Road.
Okay, go ahead.
I raised a question previously during the public hearing, and nobody chose to answer it, but I'm going to ask it again. Under the usual procedure of council now, that, you know, the charter is immaterial to our government. You know, we're going to run by some legal opinion by some ambulance chasers. I asked if anybody could answer what value under that scenario does the Charter Review Committee have? And nobody chose to answer it, and I'm going to assume no one's going to answer it now. So please accept this as my resignation from the Charter Review Committee. Thank you.
Okay. Duly noted. Anybody else from the audience? Anyone else? Any callers? Gus Maureen's not out there, right? Okay. All right, thank you. Item 7, vote to adopt the fiscal year 2022 Town of Southbridge General Fund operating budget per the attached voting document in the amount of $56,456,961 to be funded as follows. Raise and appropriate $54,882,875. Transfers from other available funds, sale of street list books, $500. Cable operating account, $213,755. Debt service reserve, $950,000. Perpetual care interest, $2,000. Access road debt service, $323,515. Landfill reimbursement fund, $75,353. Sale of lots and graves, $5,000. Subtotal transfers from other available funds, $1,570,123. Other transfers, Bay Path bond premium, $3,963. Subtotal other transfers, $3,000. That was $3,000, right? Am I correct on that? $3,963. For a total general fund budget of $56,456,961. Is there a motion?
Motion moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay. So we have a voting document in front of you. So as we've done in the past, we go through that. If anybody has any questions on or holds, make it known at that time. General government, town council, $20,500, budget appropriation vote, $20,550, raise and appropriate, $20,550. Town manager, $332,945, raise and appropriate, the same. Town accountant, $182,797, raise and appropriate the same amount. Assessors, $217,778. Town treasurer collector, $416,917. Town attorney, $117,500. Town clerk, $195,699. Elections and registration, $49,274, less $500 from sale of street list books for a raise and appropriate of $48,774. Planning board, $83,695. Economic development, $70,325. Cable TV advisory committee, $213,755, less from the cable operating account of $213,755. General government program accounts. Audit fees, $36,000. Copy machine costs, $17,000. Telephone, $45,000. Postage, $45,000. Natural gas, $65,000. Heat and fuel, $35,000. Property management miscellaneous, $12,000. Reserve for property repair, maintenance, and demo, $50,000. Fuel and lubricants, $135,000, for a subtotal in administration of $440,000. Data processing, $239,000. Council reserve, $100,000. Contributory retirement, $4,065,401. Section 3, personnel, sick vacation leave buyback, $63,534. Recruitment and processing, $9,000. Employer Medicare tax, $156,000. Subtotal personnel, $231,534. Group health and life, $4,129,589. General insurance, workman's compensation, $255,000. Police and fire indemnification, $60,000. Unemployment compensation, $50,000. Property and liability insurance, $360,000. Deductible liability, $30,000. Subtotal in general insurance, $755,000. Boards, committees, and commissions. Central Mass Regional Planning, $5,031. Conservation Commission, $1,000. Zoning Board of Appeals, $250. Historical Commission, $500. Licensing Board, $500, for a subtotal in boards and committees of $7,281. Debt service, Section 7. Principal on debt, $2,152,883. Interest on long-term debt, $795,357. Interest on short-term debt, $5,000. Issuance expense, $2,500. For a total of $2,955,740, less debt service reserve transfer, $950,000, less access road debt service, $323,515, for a deduction of $1,273,515. Is that correct, Karen? I see the parentheses. That should be raise and appropriate 1 million, right? That's not a negative, correct?
Correct.
Right? It's a positive, raise and appropriate. Special accounts, revaluation services, $35,000. Ambulance billing services, $33,000. Medicaid billing, $20,000. Other post-employment benefits, $250. Roadway improvement fund, $0. Subtotal special accounts, $88,250. Miscellaneous. State and county assessments raised on recap. Overlay reserve not in total. Subtotal miscellaneous, no vote required. For a general government total of $14,913,030, less the transfers of $1,487,770 to raise and appropriate $13,425,260. Any questions on general government? Council Marquetti.
I just have one question.
Can't hear you.
On the
Sorry.
economic development, is that for the economic development director's pay, which we don't have an economic development director anymore, correct?
Mr. Town Manager?
That is correct. Essentially, we don't have, that position is vacant at the moment, and what we have done for the moment is we have been experimenting with enhancing the responsibilities of the planner and Ms. Dean, who handles CDBG, to see what, if any of those, they've been able to take on. We worked up a formal agreement with my HR specialist, Kim Ferrin, and we've been experimenting with this time. And when I gave the budget presentation, I respectfully requested that we keep that money in place in the event we decide to go back If we decide not to, we could do something different with that money, but I wanted to placeholder in the event that we decide we either want to promote somebody into that position, or we want to continue as is, or we want to hire somebody from outside.
All right, thank you.
Any further? Council Steves, general government recommendations on this?
As I recall, we recommended all of those sections pretty close to unanimously. I don't have the exact, I don't have the minutes in front of me at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to public safety. Police, $4,587,389. Fire, $2,591,231. Inspections, $149,531. Public safety program accounts, streetlights, $200,000. Total public safety program, $200,000. Public safety total on the budget appropriation vote is $7,528,151, and to raise and appropriate the same amount. Any questions on police, fire, inspections, public safety? Seeing none. Public Works. DPW Operations and Administration, $1,837,027. Less sale of lots and graves, number 80220, $5,000. Less perpetual care interest, count number 81000, and $2,000, for a total of $1,830,027. DPW Snow and Ice, $400,000. Public Works total, $2,237,027, less transfers as stated above, and $7,000, for a raise and appropriate of $2,230,027. Any questions on DPW concern? Seeing none. Human Services. Health Department, $658,321, less the landfill reimbursement fund of account number 67850 of $75,353, for a total raise and appropriate of $582,968. Veteran Services, $70,650. Community Center, $46,852. Library, $549,733. Recreation, $44,608. EHS program accounts, Veterans Benefits, $135,000. Veterans Memorial, $2,700, for an EHS program account of $137,700. Human Services total, $1,507,608. Strike that. $1,507,864, less transfers as stated above of $75,353, for a raise and appropriate of $1,432,511. Any questions on the EHS? Education, Southbridge Public Schools, $29,037,793.
Hold.
Okay, Bay Path, Southern Worcester County Regional School District Bay Path, $1,017,563. Southern Worcester County Regional School District Bay Path Debt Service, $215,533. Subtotal Bay Path, $1,233,096. Education total of $270,889, and raise appropriate same. So we just have a raise on the Southbridge Public Schools. Out of all those accounts, that's the only hold we have, correct? That's what we're having discussion on? Okay. Council Ryan?
I didn't hear you.
Huh?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The only hold that I recognized here for discussion on the budget is the education.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Council Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. I'm going to make this pretty quick because we have a long agenda tonight. I made clear my issues with not so much the funding amount, but the process in which that was pushed with by the school department. I have had issues for years on the lack of transparency when it comes to producing a line item budget for not only this body, but when I was on the school committee. I have made clear, for me, this is a line. I cannot in full conscience support moving forward on this until we have a more detailed line item budget from the school district, and make a motion at this time to postpone until the next meeting on June 7th to give the school district time to provide us that that line item budget.
Second motion.
Motion to postpone. Is that debatable? Councilor Plaza?
Postpone to a specific date.
But is that debatable?
Yes.
Yes. Discussion? Councilor Catrona?
I'll just state, as I stated at the EHS meeting, I feel strongly, as Councilor Ryan does, the lack of transparency and not seeing a line item budget, I feel very, I don't feel comfortable voting on it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on motion to postpone? The charter does state we have to adopt a budget by May 31st, so we'll have to have conversations this evening about it. So, but there is a motion in front of us to postpone. Roll call on motion to postpone.
Counselor Daniel?
No.
Counselor Dow? No. Counselor Jovan?
No.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
No.
And Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
By 5 to 4, it passes.
To postpone. So, I'm not sure how to go about this right now because we have to adopt the budget by May 31st. So, I understand the concerns. I mean, there was a lot of dialogue at the subcommittee meeting about the line item budget. And as chair, I'm going to hold off on my comments because I don't want to be perceived and get a complaint against myself. Councilor Lazo?
Mr. Chair, the only thing I can see is that the education item is deducted because it's postponed, and whatever else is voted tonight, the budget is adopted as it's written. That's the only thing I could suggest. And then hopefully, because it was postponed to a specific date, we can get something done by that date and then bring it back to council to vote the main budget.
I guess question through the town to the town manager. Mr. Town Manager, in reviewing the charter, it says that the school department, I believe, will present a budget. In what manner?
I am looking for that, but I don't know that they are required by the charter. I can't find the exact spot. But I was going to raise a point of information that I believe that we are celebrating the federally recognized holiday of Memorial Day on May 31st, and I don't know how we could have a meeting on that day.
Well, I think Councilor Lazo's point is that we adopt the budget less the school department and then reconsider the school department's budget.
Correct.
But if it's just procedural. If you're postponing to a date certain and that date is not a date that you can do anything, how does that work? I thought they said May 31st.
Go ahead.
at first.
I'm sorry.
Never mind. I apologize. I thought somebody mentioned May 31st at first.
No. Just, you said to the next meeting?
Which was June 7th.
June
Okay,
7th.
all right. I withdraw
Yeah.
my question.
So.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go, Councilman.
just got a quick question. What dates did we request, or the individuals request, a line item budgets from the school?
If you give me a moment,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chair, I'll get that
Councilman.
email.
Thank you.
I will as well.
April 29th.
April 29th? When was the meeting?
April 29.
So the meeting was also the same day? Okay. I'll give them time to find the dates. I understand about the transparency and the line item here, I'm holding up the budget on this, but I'm assuming go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, if I may, through you. I made a formal Freedom of Information Act on the 6th of April. I then followed up on the budget, public budget meeting which was the 29th, and I stated again that if I did not get the line item budget, that this would be this type of motion would be the motion that I would make. So I've been very clear since the beginning of April that this was an issue, and I wanted a line item budget that every other department, including the regional school district, can provide us. I think it's only fair that every department, including the school budget, the school department, which has to come to us and request the money from us, provide us the same level of transparency. Maybe it's not specifically written out in charter, maybe it's not specifically written out in law, but we can always ask for more information if we so deem it. And I believe that's a precedent that maybe was the precedent that was set tonight, that maybe we want a little more information coming forward from the school department. Thank you.
I'll go to the town manager for a clarification, and then I'll go defer to you.
Mr. Chairman, it is section 10-4-1. It says, "The budget shall provide a complete financial picture of all town funds and activities for the ensuing fiscal year, including the proposed school budget, and, except for the school budget, or as required by law or this charter, shall be in a form as the town council deems desirable or shall require." So it exempts the school budget from the council's requirements and form.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm going to go to Council Catrona first. Or did you have a
Thank you, Mr.
follow-up on your question?
Yeah, I
I'm
did,
sorry.
Mr. Chair. I'm asking that question, and fair enough to Councilor Ryan, the fact that she asked for, 23 days prior, and I appreciate that. And you're the only one right now who's actually giving me the appropriate, I guess, response that I guess I'm looking for. I would ask the EHS chair at the same time. I'm assuming you have been discussing this with him the entire year?
Go ahead,
Mr.
Councilor.
Chair, through you to answer the counselor. My request to Dr. Villar went out on April 9th. I also did receive an email back from Dr. Villar stating very similar comments to Councilor Ryan's. This was discussed at length, ad nauseum, at the subcommittee meeting that we had, the EHS, to further answer your question. And the meeting was lengthy and extensive. I hope that answers your question.
It does, Counselor. Thank you for that information. I don't want to continue to argue the point. I'm just assuming that the EHS chair and probably individuals within the EHS had meetings with the receiver and the school the entire year to discuss something like this, to hash out the issues if so requested. I have to give Councilor Ryan credit, because I know you've been asking for it for quite some time since you were the chair of the school board. But my thing here is, now that we are the council here deciding to move forward, we're asking for this information the same month in which it goes to the subcommittee. I'm assuming here that councilors in general, besides Councilor Ryan, have been asking for this specific information for the last 10 months, 9 months, 8 months, 7 months, all the way down, and trying to hash out maybe what the issues may be at hand. If that's not the case, and constant communication with the receiver has not been had by either EHS members or counselors per se in general, I don't understand what the holdup is. I mean, I have constant communication with a lot of department heads on a daily basis, and I'm assuming, I'm asking them questions 9 months out. So I'm hoping EHS did the same thing.
Mr. Chair, if I can respond quickly to that. There was a series of 2 emails that I just found back and forth with Dr. Villar, speaking on my own behalf, and there was just refusal to turn over a line item budget to this council. I then requested an EHS meeting after that, and it was difficult for both our schedules to meet. I couldn't meet with his schedule and vice versa. And we did try I think we tried at least twice to hold an EHS meeting. The point is, Counselor, and to everyone that's listening this evening, every other department head, including Bay Path, has to give us a line item budget. They provide us with one. Why can't our school department do that? We talk about transparency. We have lack of transparency within our own school department. Thank you.
I'll go Council Lazo and Council Ryan. And then Dr. Villars.
With all due respect, the council's being asked to vote on $29 million. And I have my own subcommittee, PPP, that I work on, and we probe our departments, and we get our line item budgets, telephones, you name it, we got it. I was kind of taken aback by a request by the council to Mr. Villar that we couldn't have a line item budget. That to me, I said, why not? Wouldn't you rather come to the council like a superintendent of schools? If a council requested, we're just voting bottom line. We don't vote line item. But to vote the bottom line is to understand what's inside the document. And for me, I'm entrusting the Education and Human Services, like any other committee that we have here, that if I'm not at every meeting at Education and Human Services, because I'm not a member of it, I feel I have to listen to these members. I mean, this isn't one guy making noise here. But for me, from the budgetary standpoint, you want to stand up here and say, I'm not giving you one. Don't expect the hospitality coming the other way. Don't know what planet this is designed from. If there's a request for a line item budget, what's wrong with that? They got a full-time business manager, full office to handle this. It's not like we're putting it on our finance director. Thank you.
Council Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification to, I've been having to ask for this, as was stated, since the moment this particular receiver has come into place. I have never had this issue under past receivers, past superintendents. If I've asked to see budgetary information, I was shown it. Even when I was just a simple member of the public, Jessica Huizinga was glad to show me that financial data, was glad to hand over any financial document I wanted to see as long as protected information was redacted. I don't understand why voting members of this body who have say on the final line item budget cannot get information. I just do not understand that. It speaks to a lack of openness and a lack of transparency. And you can't tell me that a horse is a horse when you're giving me a goat. You just can't. And I appreciated the narrative pieces that were given to me by the district, but they're just that, narrative pieces. I don't want narration. I want raw financial data. I want what you're going to show. I want the raw format of how you're intending to spend the money, just like Jessica showed us, just like past superintendents have shown when requested. It's not that hard to request. I don't understand the lack of transparency. Thank you.
I just want, for the record, we talk about transparency. I just want to make sure, for the record, Council Ryan, I believe, put a request in to have the budget reports sent to you. Is that correct? Is that correct? Yes or no? Did you receive the FY 2020 budget that had line items identified in that budget? I just want it for the record.
Yep, I received
Yes.
the previous fiscal years. Yes, I have.
And FY
Previous.
and FY 21.
Yes, the current and previous fiscal year, yes, but we're talking about the current
I
line item
understand that.
budget. I understand that's background information. That's all it is.
I understand that, Council Ryan. I just want to say, for the record, and I agree, I served on school committee for a long time, and I spent a lot of time in the town manager's office when it came to budgets. So I understand the bottom line authority and what you present to town council and the form that you present to town council, but when we talk transparency, we throw that word around, and I understand we want to know what next year's budget will look like. But the school department did submit to the counselors what they spent in FY 2020 and what their line items for FY 2021 are. I just want that for the record because that clearly delineates where they're spending the money. And I just want that because I don't want that thrown out that they haven't given us any information because they have. I understand going forward, a perspective, but we do have past history. The only other thing I'd like to say in regards to the EHS subcommittee meeting, when this topic came up, we had no conversation at all, regardless of whether the school district gave us the line item budget or not. There was no discussion at that subcommittee about how this $25 million would be spent to improve the education of our students. That was disturbing on my part because we want to throw money, we want to defend the budget, we want to educate our kids, but we had no substantive conversation as a council in that subcommittee as to and I had this conversation with the chair. We did, about what does $25 million get us? And I guess we all want to know, what does $25 million get us? Where are we spending the money? So, Councilor Lauser?
I agree with you 100%.
And Dr. Villar?
When
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, did you?
No, go ahead.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
When the state took us over, it was all about data.
He was recognized first.
They dated us to death. And we just want a little bit of data so we can tell the taxpayers, this is what we're getting for our money. And for me, I'm kind of shocked. If you've got a finance director that has given you the 2020, 2021, what is the big deal of giving 2022, the prediction of what you have this year? I'm not understanding why that's a stumbling block for the school department. And again, it's oversight and accountability. You don't have a school committee overseeing the school district anymore. I get it. We have a receiver, a solo. Not big on dictators, but the design is flawed. It's not our receiver's fault. I don't want to pick on the receiver. I basically call out the state on their design of takeover and dismount. And now they want budget oversight. The only oversight is the council. There isn't anything else. So if you just want to say, okay, we don't need a line item budget, we don't need an explanation, we don't need to know what we're getting for our money, although I live in Southbridge, I know what we're getting for our money. I'm not happy with it, but we can work on it. But again, like the chairman has said, transparency seems to be the word of the 2000s, and it's getting old. I like accountability and oversight. Please explain to me why you need this money and what are we getting for it. I want to be a common sense guy and just put it out there where the average citizen can understand it. But the minute you say transparent, you got to be clear. Why don't you just be honest and put the paperwork on the table? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
I'll defer to the chair and then Dr. Villar will have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to respond to you, for the record, there was discussion at the EHS subcommittee. Dr. Villar did state at that committee that he did and provide us with prior year line item budgets that are prepared after this council votes the budget. So for a matter of record, give it to us now, give us the line item budget now, not after we approve. And this, I stated this during the subcommittee as well. We're approving a lot of money. Show us where we're spending it and how we're spending it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Villar?
Well, good evening. I guess I'll be sore tomorrow after all the rocks you just threw at me for the last 15, 20 minutes. Really appreciate the respect, the thanks for the 3 years of hard work we've been doing here in town, the work that we did with the team to lead the school district through the pandemic. I get this tonight. Don't really appreciate it. I want to be very clear. No one on this council asked for a meeting since that last meeting. No one took me up on the offer. So we're playing some political games, which remind me why I don't work for anyone in Southbridge at the moment. It's why I don't work for the school committee, because of these games. Let's be very clear. The law is very clear that the school committee is supposed to create the budget. The school committee is responsible for the format of the budget. Your town charter makes it very clear that the town's rules don't apply to the school budget. Now, when we look at the budget that has been submitted, the same format for 3 years now, this budget tells you where your money has gone. You can take a look at 70% are in staffing salary. Now, I was asked over the last week to provide a list of all of our staff, all of their salary, all their benefits. You all received that. So you actually have more detail than you've seen in 3 years because someone requested it. I'd argue it's somewhat meaningless to you, but now you know what everyone makes in the school district because you put in that request for that information. We know that transportation is 10% of the budget, and that's broken out in these charts. We know that utilities are broken out in these charts. We know that we have curriculum and consultants. All this information we share. Now, I supplied 2 fiscal years of audited financial data. Audited financial data. Let's be very clear. A budget projection 15 months out with little line items is not a financial document. That is a projection of where money might be spent. We broke it up into object level because, as I said at the subcommittee, I plan on making line item transfers between each of those lines all year long. That's the nature of receivership. In fact, under Massachusetts law, really only a receiver can do that because typically it would be a school committee that would authorize line item transfers. Administration of a school district cannot. But under the authority of a receiver, I get to do both in the aim of improving the school district rapidly. So to produce an estimate of 60 months out of how I'm going to change all those lines would be lying to this body. I've said it repeatedly. But in my efforts for transparency, I release where I actually spent the money. Not where I say I'm going to spend the money, maybe 6 months from now, but where it actually was expended. I showed actual salaries, so you can see where the money actually goes. No smoke screen, no BS. This is where it's going. We know with a high level of certainty that 70% of the money is going to people. All the positions that we estimate having are in this document. So that's 70%. Now you know what those people earn. So you know what some of your neighbors are earning. I'm not quite sure why that matters, but it's there. We also know that 10% is going to be in transportation. That's listed. We know it's going to be in special education. That information is broken out. So it really gets to be quite redundant. This idea that somehow producing a line item document printed out for next year gives you more transparency is mythology. Just be clear. I was taught when someone's a bully, you stand up to the bully. If you want to bully, understand you are violating the law this evening. The law is very clear. School committee creates the budget. The town council votes up or down on that line item. So if you're going to cut the budget, you cut the budget. And what you're telling me is that's more important than the school system improving. You're telling me you don't want to cooperate with the receivership, and you don't want to cooperate with the department, and you're telling Beacon Hill the 75% of the state funding that makes this budget is being rejected by this town. That's kind of the choice that you face this evening. I've spent 3 years working for the children of this community. I answer questions, I meet with people, I take people on tours of the schools unannounced. I'm not hiding anything. I'm here for one reason, to improve the school district, to prove that children who live in Southbridge can learn at high levels. That's it. That's my agenda. I don't play political games, so I'm not going to cave to insistence on producing things that are meaningless. So that's my response. I'd love to take more questions. This is where we're at.
Questions? Council Lauzon.
I'm thoroughly insulted by your performance here today. I want you to know 35 years of service to the public, and never have I been bullshitted better than just now. I know I'm out of order. I've just been threatened by the boogeyman. You're telling me that projecting a budget is wrong. Just give me the money and then I'll tell you how I'm going to spend it later, or I'll line item it after. Well, why don't we do that with all our department heads? Don't hold them accountable. Just let DPW give her X amount of millions of dollars and tell me later how you're going to spend it. Having a dictatorship over our school district is one mistake. Giving them an open checkbook is the second mistake. I've seen real superintendents. I remember when our district was high-flying. Our 11th graders could read. They can't now. It's about culture and climate, not about mathematics, not about reading. And we're going to sit here and have somebody say that formulating a budget on how you're going to spend your money, how many science teachers? We have under 2,000 students in our district, and we're at 29 million. We did a better job with less money without the state. But, gentlemen, when I jotted down what a wonderful job he's doing or our district's doing. We didn't have a prom this year. Northbridge did. We didn't have a class trip for the seniors. Northbridge did. And other districts did a better job. And I sat there and I looked at it, I'm like, wait a minute, you want to talk about fuzzy math? Give it somebody an open checkbook, and I'll give you the answer later. You can say whatever you want, Mr. Villar. I personally don't think this is your problem. You work here, you're paid over $200,000, great. But when you give a secretary a massive raise because you just think she's worth it, that's where I would cut the bottom line. Nobody gets a $30,000 raise without an increase of duties, an increase of hours, or a job change. I've already seen and heard all of what goes on in our district. The locals live here, they talk to us, we hear it. We have a total finance department at that high school, and a finance director, that can't put a budget together to do a budget projection. That's an incompetent. And we're paying top dollar for it. And in the 11th grader can't read. What's the problem? Now, we're going to accelerate this and we're going to fix it real fast. How long have you been here, Mr. Villar?
3 years.
How long have we been in receivership?
4 years.
We failed. The state has failed here. And how long? 5 more years? They can't even tell you how to dismount out of a receivership. Holyoke doesn't know how. The other ones don't know how. They don't have an exit plan. And they will data you to death. The discipline that goes on in that building is data-driven. Don't punish a child, it'll show up on the data. I know that for a fact. But we're doing a great job. Kids are really, if we did an exit interview of a senior that went to college and to see how deficient a senior is when they hit that college floor, and I've heard it from the parents, I've heard it from the kids, and my daughter was one of them. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The smoke and mirror show's over.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Marquez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Villar, maybe we could...
I can't hear you. You have to speak.
Dr. Villar, maybe we could tone it down a notch here. I do have a lot of respect for you. I think you've done a pretty good job. However, I don't see anything wrong with a line item budget. After all, I'm paying the bills here. I'm the one that's paying these teachers. I'm the one who's paying all of the money that you're getting. So I don't see any problem with a line item budget. And I think you should just, give us what we want. I know what it says in the charter. I also know what it says in the state law. State law says that the school committee does have a right to approve your budget for the general education. So, I mean, unless you're saying that you don't, you're always saying that you want a good school committee, so turn it over to the school committee then. But I see nothing wrong with it. But let's tone it down a little bit, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm not mad at you or nothing. I think that there's nothing wrong with a line item budget at this time. Thank you.
So we're going to go in circles on the semantics, I think, all evening. Because I am in all effects the school committee, and I approve the budget and producing the budget, and then I have to manage the budget throughout the school year. So that's why I release the financial documents at any time, because you should know where your money goes. And that's the irony here, is you actually do find out exactly where your money goes. And this document here explains at an object level where all the money goes. So again, we're playing some games here, perhaps with language. We tell you where the expenditures are going based on our best estimates. 70% are on salaries, which we release to all of you. Then the transportation is contract driven. Then there's special education. So then we're talking about the small items of crayons, textbooks, and materials, and the other items, which gets transferred around all year long. This budget document worked last year, answered all the questions the council members had. The year before, we answered all the questions the council members had. And the year before, we answered all the questions. But this year, suddenly, this is insufficient. And it's so insufficient, we're not going to fund the schools. And I'm sorry, I might be a little passionate about that, because to me, it seems a bit absurd. The document provides all the information, and on top of that, I release even more information per your request nearly immediately, as fast as we can produce it, so that you can see it. To me, it's a bit flabbergasting. I don't know that folks have actually read the document I provided. It tells you exactly where all the FTEs are in each of the schools, so you know what positions were added, which positions were new during the COVID, which positions that we're hoping to add for next year. All of that data and information is here. And it was well received when we included it in the budget document several years ago. People loved it. So again, I'm having a hard time understanding. If you look on page 21, it tells you all about transportation, regular transportation, special ed, private school, athletic transportation, field trips, after-school programs, summer school transportation, utilities, electricity, heating, communications, water and sewer, custodial supplies, maintenance, vehicles, maintenance supplies, academic contracts, contracted services, legal, technology contracts, athletic supplies, general office supplies, hardware and software, instructional supplies, nursing supplies, academic expenses, game officials, other expenses. I'm thinking there's a lot of detail here. Base salaries of staff, substitute salaries, stipends, overtime cost, unemployment cost, Medicare and retirement cost, sick leave buyback, clothing allowances, out-of-district tuition. Don't tell me this isn't a line item budget in the sense it tells you everything you have. What it doesn't do is break down the number of field trips, right? It doesn't break down electricity by school. That's the next layer. This gives you the information. You know where your money's going. You knew where your money's going for the past 3 years when our budget was approved. So this is really all about power. This is about demanding things rather than following the procedures outlined in the law. So that's where we're at. But this certainly has a lot of detail in it. Just take the time to read it. Anyone in the public wants a copy, happy to give it to them. Happy to also sit, like I invited, and walk people through it and answer questions about it. Also happy to give you a tour.
Any other? Council Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, and directly to Dr. Villar. Dr. Villar, you've had the ability for months to resolve this with just providing a line item budget. For you to stand up here tonight and say you don't like rocks that are being thrown at you, you don't like being bullied, it's insulting. You can't hold, this council is finally holding the school department accountable. For the first time in 3 years, as you place it, other councils just said yes, yes, yes. So now you're being held accountable for the money that you're spending. You have the ability to resolve this. Very simplistically, you have a finance office. Provide us a line item budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if I may?
Go ahead.
So again, I provided you the legally required budget. What you're requesting goes outside of the law. The law is very clear, and it's established that the school committee sets its school budget and sets the format. You're asking something that's inappropriate and not in accordance to how this structure was established hundreds of years ago for a reason. Part of what I need to do is hold what I believe is right. And I've created a document that I know gives the proper information. And so you want to try to coerce me into creating a new document that would allow dysfunctionality to persist. And when part of my job is to prevent dysfunctionality. So it is a question. This document provides it. I've given you all the financial information. I've given you all the personnel information. There's really no more information to be had at this point.
Council Catrona?
Just to follow up, you use the verbiage coerce, and no one's coercing you. We've asked for a simple document, and we've asked repeatedly. I'm not going to go round in circles with this evening. Hopefully before the next meeting we can come to a resolution. I specifically asked you at the EHS meeting repeatedly, and I was adamant, show us a line item budget. You repeatedly stated at that meeting that past councils just approved the budget. Well, this one's holding you accountable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I guess I have a question for process.
Well, just shake your head.
I have a right to shake
We're
my
going
head,
to
sir.
kind of
Thank
disagree.
you. I
And I know I'm
absolutely
out of order, Mr.
disagree,
Chairman.
and I have a right
Please.
to disagree for sure.
passionate
And
about spending the
I certainly
town's
can
money.
shake my head if I'm disappointed in the circumstances that I find myself. Yes, I absolutely may. Thank you.
So to your point, Councilor Catrona, I think we're all passionate about where we spend our dollars, so thank you, and it is a dialogue. I guess the end game will be Dr. Villar submits this line item budget. He says, here's the dollar amount. We can't make any changes to that line item budget. All we can do is the bottom line. That's it, the bottom line. I mean, I'm looking through this doc, and trust me, I spent a lot of time on a school committee. I'll disagree with my fellow colleague to the left that spent a lot of time on school committee because perhaps our children had different experiences in the school district. I know my graduate, same class, just graduated with her doctorate in physical therapy, a graduate of Southbridge High School. My son graduated 2 years prior to that, will be entering medical school in the fall. Just came out of the Army as a captain. There are a number of children in our school district that have been very successful since those days. And I know we're very passionate about education. I remember 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we had kids that still couldn't read, Councilor Lazo. We had kids that went to the high school that couldn't read. We had that debate at school committee constantly. This has been a long-term problem, not just the last 3 to 4 years. We've had kids that couldn't read because we didn't target them at the younger age. We'll pull the tapes. Remember Mr. Yakovacci being here as I was chair of the school committee, having the same conversation about our kids' inability to read when they went to high school. Mr. Bishop was the principal at the school, would come to us, kids can't read entering freshman year. Long-term problem. When we approved budgets at school committee, we sent it in a format to the council and went to the council and said, here's our budget, and Dr. Hanley did almost the same overview to the council. Perhaps they had the munis sheets to it. Same level of detailed presentation to council. I'm not sure what we would accomplish by spending all this time going through. I understand the points about line item. Everybody wants to see that little line item. I've also challenged councilors, make sure you go into Dr. Villar's office and talk to him. You have a problem about that secretary that got the raise, yet did that person's duties change? I know what that person's duties are now because I've had a conversation with the receiver. So we can kick this back. I'm not sure what that will gain because Dr. Villar will say, hey, I presented the budget in the format that was required. Our council will postpone. We do still have minimum net school spending and everything. We still have to fund a school district. What's best for the kids. I am passionate about education. I am passionate about the dollars that we spend. I am not a spend person, and I am not a corrupt politician like I read in Facebook today. We value everybody's dollar. I'm a taxpayer just like everybody else. I want the best for the schools. Councilor Lazo.
Just a quick history lesson, Mr. Chairman. I understand everything that you're saying. Courtney Keegan's budget was much different than what he presented. When we had the reading problem and we had Mr. Bishop at the helm, he created the Freshman Academy, which the state, not Mr. Villar, but the state disbanded Freshman Academy. The school was built in pods because it was built a certain way. State came in, didn't even know how to use the building, got rid of the engineering program, the wood, everything that we did as a building committee got dismantled. So for myself, the reading programs were put in under Bishop. The freshman academy was installed under Bishop, and it turned that problem around, and then they abolished the position of Mr. Bishop. And then he's now principal down in Southbridge, and he's been working with them along with the superintendent that we were going to pick here from Southbridge is in Southbridge. So the state did a great job of destroying Southbridge's educational process. How do we get out of this? It's not Mr. Vla's problem, the road it went. It was the previous, or the predecessors to him. My thing is, we're here now, and all of a sudden, history's repeating itself. We're not reading in the 11th grade. We don't have a freshman academy. We have a lot of culture and climate. We're going to be warm and fuzzy. Give them the hugs while they tear the bathroom apart. I mean, I don't like getting BS, okay? Don't tell me, cut the money, you're going to hurt the children. We had less money, more students, more efficient back in the day. My kids, I have success stories. My oldest daughter's a doctor, came out of UConn. My second daughter is fifth in the nation for the enterprise rental company. We had a great school system. It's my last daughter that got stumbled into something that, the removal of the principal, the takeover, the whole, I mean, when she went to school, I had to pay for a lot of work to get her up to speed. She's fine, she works in a hospital. She's a Lazo, she hasn't quit. But how about the other kids that don't quit, that do quit because they don't have parents? That's my care, my passion for education. The ones that have good parents and the good homes and they got all the resources, they're going to make it. They all make it. Jack's kids made it big. My kids are making it big. But what about the little kid that doesn't have that support system at home? Gentlemen, more money does not make better education. And accountability and oversight is not something that has been instilled since the state took over. And I'm not bullying Mr. Vla. I actually like him as a president. I don't mix my politics with my personalities. I like Mr. Vla, don't care for his attitude tonight. It's not the way you go in front of an appropriating body. And that's fine. I mean, he wants to kick us in the teeth, throw rocks, whatever you want to call it. The only reason why I get rocks thrown at you, it was triggered by something. For every action, there's a reaction. So let's move on and deal with what's in front of us. Thank you.
For the record, I just want to point out a couple facts that got glossed over here. The state was not in control of the system when Mr. Bishop and they restructured the middle school, high school. That was an elected school committee. I just want that for the record.
I said it was before Mr. Vla. It was before. It happened long before.
You had kind of mixed in the state with that
I don't need a
comment,
point of clarification, sorry.
I want it for the public.
You're the chairman, direct the traffic. Don't critique me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lazo. I'm saying a point of clarification, point of fact.
You got it.
Thank you. Dr. Villa?
A couple points. So the $29 million request that's before you is entirely funded by state aid, leaving 1%, or 111,000, I should say, on the table that we asked to put into the buildings because we have 5 school buildings with tens of millions of dollars of repair and are likely to have a catastrophic failure of any major system at any point. West Street had a section of the roof blow off a couple months ago. So we're debating a budget that's before you that's entirely funded by the increases in state aid. I would also argue, since we've been in this impasse over the budget structure, and to Mr. Lazo's point, I will apologize for my passion in that my tone of my voice has increased this evening. But I'm here fighting for those kids you described every day, all day long, with the team of incredible teachers we have. I would suggest that I haven't been presented with any questions about the budget, about our programs, about our intentions to expend the money at subcommittee or this evening. It's been all about, I want, and me saying no, 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 right? So we've dug a trench. I was asked Freedom of Information requests for salaries, which we produced. I produced financial documents in an effort to give you information. Are there unanswered questions about our programs in schools? Folks want to vote on the budget to see They want to know where the money's going and what the programs are about, but no one has asked a question about the programs in our schools, about the philosophy, the objectives, what we're trying to accomplish, how long it might take. And again, a few members of the council have taken me up on the offer to sit and talk and walk into schools, and I appreciate that. But many have not. Many have chosen just to stand afar and criticize, but not come and talk and share what they might know about the schools. I'm always willing to learn. So again, maybe the way to move past this impasse is to provide some answers to some questions.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if I think I was traveling during your period of time when you were given the brief there, Dr. Villar. And like every single year that I've been on the council, you did an amazing job. You and your team did an amazing job providing a breakdown of where these funds were going. So I appreciate that, and I understand the entire year has been one that has completely been different for quite some time, and we do appreciate I appreciate what the teachers have done, including your staff, over this past year while we've gone through this pandemic. And as you explained earlier to me, a lot of teachers are very tired because this online stuff, the hybrid stuff, the in-person stuff, all mixed into one, it takes its toll on the teachers itself. I guess my only question here is, I don't have a question on your budget. You and Seth did an amazing job at that brief. Either I watched it on YouTube or I got to see it live. But we're holding up a budget for the school because of a line item request, correct? Is that, this is what I'm assuming the council is doing?
I would argue what we're holding up is we want to break down these line items even further. So it's insufficient to know what the projected utilities costs are, but we're going to have to break that down further to delve even deeper into what those projections might be. And my point all along has been that can be potentially meaningless.
So you just mentioned, Dr. Villar, that nobody's asked you a question as far as the general budget is concerned, or concerns or praises, whatever it may be. What's the line item going to do for you? I got to tell you, I'm listening to this. It just seems like people are making themselves feel better because they're sticking to their guns. And if that's a personal attack, I really don't care. But I will say is we're holding up this budget for the schools because we want line item requests. But for 3 years, we sat here and approved everything that he's presented. Actually gave the school more money, I believe it was last year, even though he requested more. We gave him some money to move forward with, some extra funds. But for 3 years, and I can count, there's only a couple of new counselors here that weren't here last year. Unless I'm wrong, I think everybody voted for that process last year that's here this year. So I'm just not getting what the difference is between 2019, 2018, 2020. I'm not really sure what the difference is besides personalities maybe and driving this. So, it's a shame to see this actually happen, especially through the year that you guys went through. And, okay, so Dr. Villar, you give an entire breakdown. Is that changing your vote? Is that going to change anybody's vote here? If it's not, then I wouldn't even give a line item budget either.
Councilor
That's all
Ryan?
I've got.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Councilor Ryan?
As I've made clear for years, yes, it would. It would make a huge impact in my mind knowing that we're being fully open, honest, and transparent, and I can look at this. Just like I did with Baypath, I went through and I asked specific questions about the line item and was able to get answers from them about specific things, little things. I want to be able to comb through, as I have done with every other department, and I've been consistent on this for years. For me, that would change my vote. If I do get the line item budget in all its detail, I will change my vote.
Mr. Chair,
But I want to know how we're doing, how we're spending.
Can I just respond to that real quick?
Councilor Adams?
Councilor Ryan, like I said before, I know what you've been asking for. Regardless if we agree or disagree, I know what you've been asking for the last 3 years. I respect that. But all of a sudden this year, other councilors are on here saying they want something new. So I'm assuming that this discussion was had, not April 9th, not April 6th, but in March, in February, in January, and all these other times that the doctor and his staff have invited the councilors to come down and have a conversation or meet here, I'm pretty sure. It's just surprising that all of a sudden this changes. You know, I guess I'm disappointed that I'm not hearing that we had these conversations way before the budget season. Say, this is what I'm trying to look at, this is what I would like to see, how can we work together on this whole process? The only one that's been, actually 2 people have been consistent on the request is the chair, who meets with the doctor constantly, and Councilor Ryan. So I just don't get the change all of a sudden in Councilor's thought process. And holding you accountable, it's not really holding you accountable. It's not holding your staff accountable. Is it holding we can do smoke and mirrors, whatever you want to call it, but, you know, what about our children at this point in time? I went to schools in Southern California, and we can go on stories all day long. We had metal detectors in the 80s. We had a lot of gangs and drugs and shootings and all that stuff, more so than in this town. And somehow or another they worked together as a council, as a board, to get them a budget. And I'm telling you, some of the stories that him and his staff have told us about these kids, you know, they need the help. They need the support. They need the consistency. They need the structure. They need that control to make them better human beings. And we're not showing that, I don't believe, tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Catrona?
thank you. If I can just respond to some comments from the previous councilor and others, and if I offend anyone. Perhaps the previous councilor doesn't, his memory just doesn't recollect last year when Councilor Lazo was in charge, was in charge of the EHS subcommittee meeting, and I argued for a line item budget. I was passionate about a line item budget at that meeting. When this came to full council last year, I was passionate for a line item budget and where the money was going. Have I met with Dr. Villar? No. I have no. Show me a line item budget. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Councilor.
just on a quick note. Mr. Villar, I know you have an open door policy. I know Mr. Jovan's at the school periodically as chairman, monitoring the goings and the comings. The thing is, the council does the budget process. I just never in my lifetime, like I can take like a Dale Hanley, who, when the school district was on receivership, when they did really well at budget session, was when it was an open process, where the whole budget was on the table with a line item, okay? And for me, I can go back to Joanne Austin. I mean, I sit back and the experiences that I've experienced, I've always said, best thing to do is sit down. You want us to come to the school and do the budget? The Supreme Board in Southbridge is not the receiver. You work for the state, I get it. I don't care for the model. It's a dictatorship. This is the government that takes the place of the people, not you, not the state. Here, this is the local government that works under the bounds of our regulations, charter, and everything. So when we turn around, and again, I like you as a person, but I turn around and you did not create this problem. And you're probably going to be here a long time. And it's probably, however we get out of it, with the design that comes up someday, we'll be fine. But I look at it and say, the governing body of this community is asking for a simple line item budget. If I were you, I would have gave them the line item budget, voted whatever you want to vote, and move on. I just don't understand the structure that the state and you work under. Come to my building and talk to me. I'm like, that's not how you do the budget. I just never heard of it that way. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on. Martina Shea? Just state your name and your address, please.
Sorry. Martina Shea, 163 High Street. I'm the chairman of the school committee. One of the things that people have been saying tonight is for the last 3 years, we've just let the budget slide. And we have. The first year, Dr. Villar was brand new and everybody, had to say that, he was just getting his feet wet. He needed to know what was going on. The next year, we were changing computer systems. So it was very difficult with the change to produce the line item budget. Now, I'm assuming that July 5th, a line item budget will be entered into the Munis system. And the changes will be made, as Dr. Villar said, on that budget, as changes need to be made. A roof needs to be here, a teacher needs to be there. Just exactly, you look at a town council meeting, there's usually a list about this long of changes in the budget. That's the way the school committee used to work. Mr. Jovan knows it well. As Mr. Lazo just said, we would sit with the table. It was an open meeting. Anyone could come, and they would say, okay, we need a new roof at West Street. Where do we find the money? And they would go through those little line items and say, do you really need these desks this year? Do you really need this year? And find the money and make the transfers. This has been the way the school system has been worked, as they've been saying tonight, since the beginning of time. I assume that there is going to be a line item. I know that Councilor Ryan and I have requested them. People are saying that nobody has requested these line items. I can tell you for sure that the school committee has, but as you know, we have no power. About all we can do is pledge allegiance to the flag. We need to start moving forward. Dr. Villar is an educator. It's time he start educating the school committee to be the school committee the state wants us to be. And I don't see how we can do that unless we have a clear idea of what the budget is and how things are changing from day to day. Thank you.
Okay. Council Marquetti, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I do have a couple of questions for Dr. Villar, if he wants to answer them. I do think you did a pretty good job on the budget, keeping the costs down, but I want to know how you achieved that cost. Did you cut salaries? Did you cut any benefits? Did you cut sick days from teachers? How did you accomplish keeping the budget low? That's one question I have. Thank you.
So we are receiving a large portion of COVID-19 relief funds. And as this document points out, a lot of these, the 55.75 FTEs, which dramatically increase our cost in our salary line, are offset by those. I think cost savings in special education come from us running the academy, which is a significant savings rather than placing those kids out. Like there are myriad of ways where you try to reduce, but our budget, 70% of it is people. And no, we aren't cutting teacher salaries. We're in negotiation with our teachers, and candidly, we provided our teachers with their increase projected on what their expired contract suggested they would be last summer, because we were in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of negotiations, and I felt it was important that all the teachers did receive their increase as we went into our negotiations. So we built that cost into this budget. But the costs are largely offset by COVID-19 funds. The increase request of $293,000, vast majority of that is really the result of transportation contract increase in cost and utilities cost increase. So there's no magic in saving money here. What's helpful for us is maximizing federal and state aid as we move through this difficult period. That's why we are able to put on the table a budget request that costs no additional local dollars. There's zero additional local dollars in this budget. It's all balanced by the increases in state aid. We're trying to work with the council because the Success for All Students Act is dramatically increasing the level of local funding that will be required over the next 6 years, like somewhere in the range of 5% a year. And so we need to make sure the budget grows to keep pace with the law's requirements. So that's something that we spent a great deal of time talking with the subcommittee about, because that is critical to maintain this budget pace. So if there wasn't COVID-19 AIDS, we'd have dramatic cuts. My first year here in the town, I cut $3.2 million, 32 positions out of the school district. I got a 0 from the council. Second year, got a 0 from the council. Last year, we got our first increase. So we have been fortunate that Southbridge historically has supported education. You have increased the budgets. You've been above minimum expenditures. But we're entering into a period where, because of the rapid increase of the state requirements, we're likely to run smack into minimum budget requirements, where you just have to roll the budget over or choose to go higher. So that is a peril that faces the community, amongst other fiscal constraints.
So if I could continue.
Yes, go ahead, Council.
So you're not cutting any sick days from anyone? You're not cutting anything from the teachers' salaries?
No, we're in negotiations
benefits?
with the teachers. It's a
You're in
a
the
union.
negotiations?
Correct. So we can't unilaterally cut their benefits.
Then how is that going?
They had a meeting this evening while I was here. So it's a process. The contract expired last June. So it is something that's different from my experience. In Connecticut, you're given a window and you have to get your contract done. In Massachusetts, there's no such requirement. So
So the
apparently-
contract expired last June, and you don't
June
have a new
30th.
contract?
I'm sorry?
And it's a year later, and you're still working on a
We're
contract?
still negotiating the contract.
And what about, it seems like there has always been a concern that there's a lot of people at the top over there. And you've pointed out, you've showed me data saying that I don't have a lot of people at the top. But when I looked at some of the items that you had there, it seemed to me that you had a lot of people who aren't actually, it was just my opinion that they aren't really teachers. They're more like behavioral experts and things like that. And
Yeah.
also, and I'll just finish off saying that the Southbridge Academy, that's also, from what I understand, it's a lot of kids going there who are troubled kids, and it keeps growing every year, and you have a large staff working over there at the Southbridge Academy, correct?
Yes. Southbridge Academy has about 42 students enrolled at the moment. It's not a cheap program to run for sure, but the alternative is placing those students in extremely expensive outplacement facilities where
Right.
you incur tuition cost and you incur transportation cost and the cost of the student not being educated in their hometown. So now they have to ride a bus a long distance to go to whatever program they're in. It is by far less expensive and I think better for Southbridge children for us to run Southbridge Academy. We're fortunate because we are able to do so in the building that we have. We also received a tuition-in student last year. It's a growing program that's having a positive effect on kids.
What about upper management, top-heavy?
I do not believe our management's top-heavy with the exception of the middle school, which I've long stated. We have an assistant principal at every grade level, but it's also the school that's given the most ruckus for years, and it's the school that we're working to turn around with the greatest efforts. We finally landed a principal who I believe is going to spend a good period of time there. That school's had 5 principals in 3 years. That's a significant problem. And I do believe Mr. House is in it for the long haul, and that's how that will start. So he does, and he knows that I believe he has, having 3 assistants is far too many in the long run for sustainable. I've been very clear with the council, with school committee and other folks that we also have grant money from DESI that does support members of my team that are not sustainable in the long run for this community, and that we have to get to a footprint where the schools are successfully operating with much lower cost overall. That is part of the job I need to do. But to change how people do things takes a tremendous amount of energy, and to restructure a system. And we need certain skill sets. And some of those skill sets won't be needed in the future. And we'll be able to shift to a smaller footprint. But that's the purpose of that grant funding.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Look, I want to resolve this. I'm sick of having the same fight every single year, because I'm not going to change my position on this. It's not going to change. It's been consistent. You know it's been consistent. I've asked for it consistently. So, once the budget is prepared, if we were to pass it tonight.
Can you speak into the mic, because I can't hear you on this side.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. If we were to pass this tonight, when will it be entered into Munis and delineated to the council? When could it be done?
Typically, in response to your Freedom of Information request, we said that's done in the summer after we receive the federal grant awards. I'd be happy to release it this summer. Like, as soon as we have it in there, Jackie, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it.
And then, I guess my second thing is, you've heard the concern from counselors tonight, and it's clear now it's a majority. Will you at least work with us if going forward into the next couple of years?
You turn your head.
Sorry,
and I can't
I'm trying to look at the receiver as I talk. I'm sorry. If going forward, you can do as every other department does and use the Munis system, once it's fully operational, I get you're still implementing it, to use that for your budget projections for next year. Is that something your office could do for the next coming fiscal year?
I do believe once we have a solid 3 years of fiscal data in Munis, what it can do for you is produce what you'd see as reports that show past year's expenditures and estimated for the next year. And I believe that's what you're asking for.
So, and since you kindly provided us with me with the 2 previous years, so this would be the 3rd year.
Correct.
Which means this coming year, that would be something I'm going to expect.
We'll have 3 fiscal years of data in Munis, and that would be available to you, certainly.
And you'd be able to use that to make projections about the trends of spending. You could use that to make projections about what your anticipated costs are going to be for specific line items using the Munis program. Is that something you could do?
Yeah, absolutely.
If he's going to be true to his word, which I'm hoping he is, I will make a motion to reconsider.
Okay, let me just get a couple councils that wanted to be recognized, if you could defer that.
That's fine, I can wait.
Thank you. Council Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I'm not willing to have a change of heart, have a change of mind this evening. I still don't understand the reluctancy to provide to this council the document that we've requested. I requested it last year. I requested again this year. Refusal. I will not change my vote. I will not change my opinion. It's difficult to understand. You talk about cooperation, why we can't get cooperation when we're asking for a document. That's it, Mr. Villar. Dr. Villar, thank you very much.
Council Laws?
Mr. Villar, I've been doing budgets for, I've been in government, I don't know how many years, a bazillion years. School committee, council, building committees. We've done budgets, $65 million middle high school. I've been through the financial ringers. I'm in business. I can add and subtract. You're telling me, or you're telling Councilor, the previous speaker, that you can't give a line item budget with 2 years of documentation, but you can give a line item budget with 3 years
Now,
of documentation? Am I
I
misunderstanding?
can clarify that for you. So we began using Munis 2 cycles ago, middle of the year. So my response is we'll be able to produce 3 solid years of fiscal data in Munis at the close of this fiscal year, and we'll be entering in the projections based off of all these lines into Munis this summer after we receive our federal grant allocations. At that time, I'd be happy to print that out.
So, without the federal grant, you cannot do this data.
What I'm
The
saying
line on
is,
the budget.
we'll enter this fiscal year into the munis system once we receive those grant awards from the feds. We do it every year in August or so, July,
So
August.
what you're saying is you have incomplete information to give us a line item budget?
What I'm saying is you have all the expenditure data to date. I've already released it to you. We don't enter this into munis until we get our awards, both from the town council and from the feds. So this,
So are we technically expending money, waiting for the money to come in?
no, we are, this is going circular. The expenditures are all processed through munis. And so when requested, where did the money go? We print that out of munis.
Okay, let me ask it a different way. You know what you're getting from the federal government, am I fair to say that?
No, we have an estimate. That's what's included in here this evening. This document has an estimate for
So
all
we're
the
voting an
grants.
estimated
It's always been that
bottom
way.
line that if the grants don't come in, or maybe they come in lower or higher, that will move this 29 million number?
No, it moves the nearly $6.5 million that's on top of that. This is a full funds budget of $35.5 million.
So
We
in other
show
words,
you
on
where
top
all
of
the
the
money goes.
29, all the state grants or federal grants come in, goes on top of the 29 million?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan?
I make the motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider, is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
What's that, Councilor Steves?
I'll second it.
You'll second it? Do you have anything to comment on?
I
Councilor,
do. I've been actually thinking about this, listening to everybody. As you know, I haven't said much. I've been listening to everybody comment and the comments from the receiver and from various other people on this committee. And yeah, I think we just need to get this done at this point.
thank you. Okay, there's a motion and a second to reconsider. Was that the motion, reconsider?
Reconsider because it was to be considered the postponement question.
Okay.
Yep.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
No.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
No?
Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
And Counselor Steves?
Yes.
All right.
6 to 3.
Council,
I just, once again, my Cuban passion certainly took over this evening. I do want to extend an invitation to each member of this council to come and see and sit with me. I'd like to answer more of your questions. And candidly, there are a few of you here that I'd like to learn some things from because you know an awful lot about your town. So again, the offer, give me a call, send me an email. I'd like to sit down and talk with you, and I'd happy to bring you around the school. So thank you for your patience this evening. Appreciate
thank you,
it.
Dr. Moore. So the motion's on the floor to adopt the FY 2022 Town of Southbridge General Fund operating budget per the attached voting document in the amount of $56,456,961.00. Roll call. Is there any further discussion? I'm sorry. I think we're good. Roll call.
Counselor Catrona?
No.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
No?
Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
And Counselor Adams?
Yes.
What time is it? Let's take a 10-minute recess to stretch for a minute because it is 8:45. We've been at it 2.75 hours, and then we'll reconvene. 10 minutes. Okay, Town Council back in session at 8:55. Item 8, vote to appropriate the amount of $4,198,688 for the FY 2022 Sewer Enterprise Fund budget to be raised from sewer usage charges and other department revenues. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Counselor Dow.
Yes.
Counselor Jovan.
Yes.
Counselor Lazo.
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti. Yes. Counselor Ryan.
Yes.
Counselor Steves.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Adams.
Yes.
And Counselor Catrona.
Yes.
Unanimous for all present. Item 9, vote to appropriate the amount of $3,586,730 for the FY 2022 Water Enterprise Fund budget to be raised from water usage charges and other department revenues. Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Dow.
Yes.
Counselor Jovan.
Yes.
Counselor Lazo.
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Yes.
Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Counselor Catrona.
Yes.
And Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Karen, do we have to vote the bottom line on this voting document, the 64 million? No, we're good. Okay. Item 10, vote to amend Schedule 1 to approve non-union 2% increases and other changes effective July 1st, 2021, as proposed, and approve the minimum wage increase effective 1/1/2022 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, as I spoke in subcommittee with the town manager, I'd like to see in the future this 2% be performance-based, and I hope we see that next year. I know we had this discussion in subcommittee. I know you're relatively new, and we just give out raises just because. It's not the way it should be. The raises should be performance-based. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And you're right, Council, it was a very good discussion at that time regarding that. Mr. Town Manager?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Council Catrona. One of the first thing I noticed when I came here was that we did not have that type of performance-based evaluation that was done. Typically, the other communities I worked on, those were happening shortly after the first of the calendar year to be completed, usually around the April timeframe, so that when we went through the budget and passed the budget, that those that were deserving got the appropriate cost of living increase. So I have no problem working on that. When I got here, I started talking to Kim Farron, our HR specialist, about how to do that. I understand that maybe Chris Clark, one of the prior managers, had been working on that, and I'd like to pick up. It's just, as you know, and I'm not making excuses, it was a learning curve. We worked on a few other things, pavement management, but I'm hoping that we can get to it for the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Jovan.
Yes.
Counselor Lazo.
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti.
No.
Counselor Ryan.
Yes.
Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Counselor Catrona.
Yes.
Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
And Counselor Dow.
Motion carries. Item 11, vote to amend Schedule 5 to approve 2% increases effective July 1st, 2021 as proposed, and the minimum wage increase as of 1/1/2022 as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Steves? Go ahead,
Thank you,
Councilor.
Mr. Chairman. A quick question through you to the manager. Excuse me. Actually, I wanted to ask this just for the last one, but it applies to this one as well. How do you plan, if you can work out these kinds of merit-based pay raise that Councilor Catrona was bringing up, how do you work it with the union contracts?
My experience has been that these will be with the non-union personnel. You could review some of the people in the unions, but a lot of their contractual language is just, it is what it is. They're getting their increases based on each new year. So this would be more for the non-union personnel that are getting the cost of living. Those cost of living increases for the union personnel are negotiated into their contracts. But I believe that you would, any supervisor who has an issue with an employee, there's a process by which someone, if there's issues, you get them on a performance-based improvement process.
What's that?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Lazo.
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Yes.
Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Counselor Catrona.
Yes.
Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Counselor Dow. And Counselor Jovan.
Yes. Item 12, vote to reauthorize the leased properties revolving fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to pay repairs, improvements, expenses, and utilities for all town-owned leased property from lease payments to be deposited in the account with all expenditures to be approved by the town manager and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $100,000 per year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Discussion? Council Ryan?
Just, did we skip over the local properties revolving fund?
No, I just said leased properties revolving fund.
Oh, sorry.
Item 12.
I read that wrong. I take that back. My apologies.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
And Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 13, vote to reauthorize the Southbridge Airport Leased Properties Revolving Fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to pay repairs, improvements, expenses, and utilities for the leased property at the Southbridge Municipal Airport from lease payments to be deposited in the account with all expenditures to be approved by the town manager and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $200,000 per year. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Steves?
Yeah, one quick question. It actually applies to all of these revolving funds. Several years ago, we put the revolving funds into the bylaws. So it seems kind of odd and redundant that we would have to go through and do this every year as opposed to just assigning a certain dollar value for those revolving funds. And as I recall, we had talked about it at some length with Karen. If Karen is there, maybe she can explain a little bit. I don't know if the manager can, but I know she was there at the time. So.
Yep. Ms. Hanois?
Sure, thank you. With the revolving accounts, in the bylaws, it just explains which accounts and what they're funded by, but there are no dollar amounts. This is the one that sets the annual amounts not to exceed in the expenditures.
Right, that's what I was thinking. And I know from some of the other communities do these all in like one item. They just say revolving fund X, revolving fund Y, revolving fund Z, and put numbers on them. I don't know if we have to necessarily do this as individual items with individual roll calls, unless somebody wanted to pull one out and debate it specifically. I mean, we have to do it because it's the way it's written. This current agenda is written, but just for future reference, we could probably make it a little simpler.
So if I understand it, is Councilor Steve just saying that we could do that in all one agenda item? Is that what he's saying?
I think he said other towns do it that way, and we could research that for future.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I have no problem taking on the research aspect of that. I came from a town that did not have a council form of government, but we used what was called a consent agenda, where we could bind a lot of like agenda items together on town meeting floor and vote them as one. So it would be issues like this. Having come to a council form of government, I would just look to make sure that it's applicable here, and I'll get back to the council on that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
And Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Item 14, vote to reauthorize the total maintenance revolving fund under provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to pay for the replacement of lost and/or damaged toters from fees by homeowners and deposited in the account, with all expenditures to be approved by the Health Department and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $20,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
And Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 15, vote to reauthorize the demolition of buildings revolving fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to pay expenses associated with the demolition of buildings within the town of Southbridge and any revenue recaptured to be deposited in the account, with all expenditures from the account not to exceed $200,000. Is there a motion?
Motion moved.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Council Dow, seconded by Council Steves there. Council Steves?
Yeah, I don't know if Andy's in the room, but I was hoping we could get a little bit of an explanation on how much money we've taken out of this account for demolition purposes. I remember several years ago, we had put aside a large sum of money, I can't remember exactly how much now, specifically for demolition that was in the main budget outside of this revolving fund. And where do things stand as far as what's coming down the pike, how much he actually expects to spend in the next year or so, how much we currently have in this fund this year?
Okay, so it's very difficult to hear you, Councilor Steve, so I'm going to try to paraphrase. One, you want to know how much money is in the account, is that correct?
Currently, yes.
And how much has been expended out of that account? Is that another
Yep.
question? And what
Yep.
the anticipated cost may be coming down the pike, is that correct?
Yep, and what happened to the funds that we set aside that were outside of this revolving fund,
Okay,
specifically for demolition several years ago? Where do those things stand?
okay. So, do you have those numbers, Ken?
Well, I'll go first. I can answer a few of the questions.
Okay.
Right now, the balance in there is 26,000.
You got to move the mic closer, sorry.
Okay, the current balance in the account is 26,696. We haven't been able to collect a lot of what was committed in there, so we have receivables that are over 300,000. As to how much has been spent, that I don't have that information. But anything that the council had appropriated for demolition are still in those accounts unless we've transferred the money out, which the council did. I believe it was the end of last year, transferred some out, but those are still available for demolition projects.
I just want to ask a follow-up question. When you say receivables of $300,000, are those liens that we have on properties?
Yes, demo liens, yes.
Demo liens? So until this property's sold or whatever?
Correct.
And so I guess the question would be, how much do you anticipate on removal in the next year? Is that correct, Councilor Steers? Okay. Go ahead. Yes, that is the question.
Understand that the way this revolving fund has to work is if we are owed $50,000 in taxes and we take down a building for $50,000, now we've got a debt of $100,000 on this owed to the town. The first debt that's paid back is paid back to the taxes. So we may not get the total liens that we have because of the demolition. So the $50,000, say we sold the building for $62,000 at auction, once we eventually said, all right, you owe enough, we're taking it. The first $50,000 would be towards the back taxes, the rest would go to the revolving fund. So we very rarely realize the amount of money we actually cost to take down these buildings. As Mr. Lazo requested at the last one that I brought to the council for demo, he asked me to put extra effort into trying to keep these buildings, get them repaired, get them renovated, rather than take them down where that can be done. So I've been putting a lot of my concentration on that recently. We do have a couple in the pipeline that we are going to have to take down. 495 South Street. We currently have legal working on it. We can't find the owners of it right now. And we want to get the owners into court. That's one that I'm going to be taking up with Michael on what is the best way to move forward. I believe we have a negative value on this building in that it's going to cost a lot more to repair it than it's going to cost to take it down. So we're probably going to pursue that one to take it down. Another one that we are looking at to take down is Brick Road, 20 Brick Row. This is one that's right off of Canal Street. Tree fell through the roof years ago, and while I was actually touring it, the stairs collapsed underneath me, so I have a personal vendetta against this one, but this one is another one that's beyond the value of the building. We have, to Mr. Lazo's point, reached out to the Attorney General. 19 Crestwood is one that is vacant, probably for the cost of cleaning the property and minor repairs to a porch. We can put this one back on the tax dollars, so I'm running this one through the Attorney General's office for receivership. Another one that we are looking at for receivership is a long history one that I've been fighting since I got here, 361 Worcester Street. Again, for the cost of cleaning the property, and the inside's as bad as the outside, a receiver can probably put this back on the tax dollars for us. We're looking at several others. I think I have 9 of them on my board in the office. One you brought up, Mr. Jovan, Chairman Jovan, was 314 Hamilton. We have begun cleaning that one because we felt that the conditions were of such dire nature that we couldn't wait for the receivership. But we're still going to have a receiver look at it. This is one that's, the interior damage is pretty bad on it, so we're not sure where this one's going. Also, the owner of it happens to be dead, so very hard to get him into court to defend the property. Nobody's probated the will, so we're going to have to see where that one takes us. But there are a minimum of 5 in the pipeline right now, and others keep popping up, and we're like, do we want this one to be priority, or do we want to commit our resources to what we have in front of us now?
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, Council Steves? Council Steves?
Yeah, thank you. I know it's a little bit off topic if you'll let me. And that's simply, do we have any plan or any legal way we can have currently occupied buildings go from absentee landlords to the tenants to take care of? So that we don't have to go through the process of taking it over or having to demolish them because it just gets abandoned and derelict?
The only way I know that we can move ownership of a building from one person to another person without first taking it is through the receivership program. The receivership program can be done on an occupied building, but the legal cost to do a receivership is pretty heavy, and the Attorney General won't take on an occupied building, so they'll only take on the vacants. So if we want to go that route, we got to be prepared to absorb the legal costs of doing it. I believe that we can probably attach the legal cost to the transfer of ownership, though, and possibly get it back. I'd have to delve deeper into that one.
You all set, Council?
Yeah, thank you.
Council Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a comment real quick. Some of the questions or some of the answers that Mr. Pelletier gave this evening, he updates a blighted property list under the Board of Health or the Inspections Department, and it's online. So if anybody wants to take a look at some of these properties he's talking about, it shows not only what's wrong with it, but also the legal action has been taken by the town. So any resident can pay attention to these pieces of property along with the council as well. So I thank you for getting that updated. I know this past year has been a little bit hectic because of the virus, but I appreciate you updating this just a few weeks ago. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the council to be patient with that one because I'm looking at it real closely. There's a lot of buildings on it that we had listed as vacant that I am currently sending my team out to confirm that they are vacant because we're finding some of them aren't. So I'm trying to update that before I put the newest version on there.
Okay. Council Marquette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I was curious if he answered Councilor Steve's questions. I think the questions were, what happened to the money that was in there? Is there any money left in there? I don't remember the third question, but I just want to know if Councilor Steves, if that answered his questions, that's all.
I did get that there was $26,969, is that correct?
696.
Okay, in the revolving account, receivables of $300,000, and whatever monies, Karen said, was whatever monies that we had in the special appropriations outside of what we transferred should be still there. So within the municipal report that we received, correct? Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you have,
If Councilor Steves is satisfied.
he said he was all set, so I'm deferring to him, but I'm just reiterating what I thought I heard.
All right. Thank you.
Right? Okay. Councilor Lazo?
Just a point of clarification to the manager. We were referring to a discussion prior to your landing in Southbridge that some of the buildings, if they're structurally sound, would you sell them at a lesser amount to get, and we've discussed this on other properties, that if a project could be turned around, that's what I brought up at subcommittee, that, I mean, if the building structurally is damaged to the point of no return, tear it down, but our building inspector and stuff, you look at it, if it's structurally sound and it can be reworked, we want to try and get it back on the market. And I don't know, I mean, if you're going through the receivership, that's one avenue. I didn't know if you could start a local group that, you know, I'm not sure what you can do, but I think that we're heading in the right direction. You know, if it can be saved, if it can be, so be it.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Town Manager.
On how to use the American Relief Plan Act monies. And a lot of those monies are going to be COVID related and also to help people that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are some schools of thought that some of the monies, and we're slated to receive almost $5 million, there's certain infrastructure, water, sewer, broadband, there's other revenue replacement, which we're going to have to work with on the state on calculations. But some of the other things are for economic investment, and they want you to use certain money in your community. It might be, and I've seen some discussion already, that you make funds available for these type of properties. If someone wants to go in and buy it, you might work some money into that property, and maybe, much like we've seen other grants, you put something in that if they flip it, they have to pay it all back, or if they're in there so many years. But there's a lot of discussion that some of this money could be used for that, which would be, I think, extremely beneficial for a community like Southbridge to be able to invest for the residents, not only for people who want to get into home ownership, but also to turn around some of these properties. And there's a lot of nice old homes that I've seen around here that still look like they have good bones, so to speak, in structure that could use some cosmetic work and make a great first home for people. So, yes, I've got my eye on that.
Good. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
And Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 16, vote to reauthorize the Municipal Hearing Officer Revolving Fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E.5, to pay expenses associated with administration and collection of fines in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 148A, Chapter 115 of the Acts of 2009. Such fines to be deposited in the account with all expenditures to be approved by the town manager and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $2,500.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Council Steves, did you have something? I see you like green. You good?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, actually, a quick question. How often do we actually have hearings with this particular situation?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilor Steves, I have been here almost 9 months, and we had the dog hearing that you folks were involved in, and there's been some other minor issues that have gone to the hearing officer. I do know that parking tickets and other things are reviewed by the hearing officer, so there aren't always full-blown hearings, but there are appeals that are made, so this individual is doing work on a regular basis. Not every day, but, I think month to month there are requests that are made and then the occasional hearing.
How's that? Roll call?
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow? Yes. Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
And Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 17, vote to reauthorize the Southbridge Middle High School Store Revolving Fund under the provisions of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53.5, to pay expenses associated with the school store from receipts to be deposited into the account, with all expenditures to be approved by the school superintendent and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $30,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion is second.
Second.
What is this? I've never seen this before.
We reauthorized it last year, I know that.
I
It's a
must have
school
missed it.
store. You know how they sell stuff, and
Yeah?
so they have a revolving fund that they can
Oh, and that's,
replenish.
okay.
I think they replenish the supplies that they bought, so whatever
Oh.
they take in, they take out. Councilor
No,
Ryan?
I understand that part, but why, it's under our jurisdiction?
All revolving funds have to be authorized by
Yeah.
the council, is that correct?
Really?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
That was my point I was
Yeah.
going to make, was that all revolving funds?
Yep. Unlike, to town manager's point, where a town meeting would approve it, so that's why it's that way. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow? Yes. Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
And Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 18, vote to transfer $150,000 from project number 67900 landfill royalties to project number 83600 OPEB Trust Fund for the FY 2021 OPEB contribution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Discussion? Council Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. As I said at the subcommittee level, I don't have a problem funding OPEB. I just don't want to see money come out of the landfill royalty funds. That's money that we need to keep aside for curbside garbage collection and management, stormwater management that's coming up that are must-haves. I would rather see this when the last town manager said it was going to come out of solar money, and I would rather see it come from there. We've also have some money left over from free cash, so I would rather see it come from there. If any of the councilors are interested, then I would amend it. Otherwise, that's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Ryan?
I'll just reiterate my comments briefly that I made at the meeting. This is one of those.
Speak into the mic there. Thank you.
This is one of those things that we desperately need to do. I wish personally we could put more in. Karen, and I want to thank Karen and the manager for their work. They provided the entire council the numbers of how much it would cost annually if we were to properly fund this. It needs to be done. We need to be making some sort of effort into putting money there. We need to show some good effort for the state so that when they do have to come up with a solution to bail communities out, we're not as bad. We're not having to look back and say, we didn't take care of them. We were trying. We're trying to make some sort of effort to take care of our retirees. And at the end of the day, it's got to be done. So that's it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. As I said, I'm not opposed to funding it. It's just the source of the funding that I have a problem with. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lazo?
Just a quick question to the finance director. Is there a particular reason why we went to the landfill royalties? I mean, to fund it out of this account, I'm sorry.
If I could, to Councilor Lazo. That's actually was a plan that the town had adopted way back when Christopher Clark was the town manager. The only thing is that what's differing now is that the landfill is closed earlier than what we thought. We thought it would be open another 10 years beyond what it was. So we'd continue to fund it from there. At this point, the manager and I have talked about it, and I don't want to, speak on his behalf, but I'll just say it is on our radar that we want to have this funded from other sources in the future, and we will be working on it.
So it's fair assumption to say that next year we might be looking at another funding source?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, it's not lost on the financial management team, and I would also give Melissa Zawadzki credit for the responses that went to the council, that we have to do something about OPEB. As Councilor Ryan inquired, we're only putting about $150,000 away a year. In reality, we should be putting millions of dollars away like we do with the pension fund so that we'll eventually have enough in that trust fund that it will fund itself off the interest and pay for some of these benefits. When I first got here, one of the things I read was the S&P Global synopsis, essentially the rating letter, and it talked last year about the fact that Southbridge needs to do something about its burdensome OPEB liability, which is approximately $47 million at the moment plus. So yes, we have to address it, and we do want to find a different funding source. But we also realized this year we were coming into some times where we would be going for funding, so we wanted to ensure that we were putting adequate funds in going forward for the fiscal year. This, based on the conversations I had with Ms. Harnois about the historic perspective of this, we chose to take it for this fiscal year, but our goal is to find an alternative source or another way to fund this going forward and have more of a plan, because in this most recent S&P Global rating letter, they commented on the fact that, quote, Southbridge does not have a formal annual contribution amount, but it continues to work towards creating a more definitive funding schedule. So they realize that we have an issue and we have to work towards it, so it's something we're committed to finding a long-term solution. Thank you.
Yeah. Councilor Steves?
Hi. Yeah, I'm going to bring up something I think I bring up every year now. And this is an issue that is really not one of my favorite issues. I have nothing against retirees, and I think we should be responsible about them, but a part of our budget includes $3.8 million in retirement costs. And that's on top of this OPEB cost. I mean, I think we are, personally, I see that we are funding our retirees on a year-to-year basis. And I understand the arguments that you guys just made about the long-term issues, but I've said, and I know I've said this before, that I think we ought to be using this money for other social and infrastructure needs in our community. That's the way I felt like this for a long time, so I'm not in favor of this.
Thank you, Councilor Tucci. Any further discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just one quick point. We are required to make those pension contributions to that trust fund. OPEB is not mandated, but they do evaluate that when they're doing your bond rating and other times when they want to look at the financial strength and health of a community. They look at how big your OPEB liability is and how much you're contributing. So it's important that we touch on that as well.
Thank you. Any further? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
No.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes. Motion carries. Item 19, vote to appropriate $1,195,128 from free cash to FY 2022 capital budget. Police Department, 2 new police vehicles for $82,518. Bulletproof vests, $19,000. Fire Department, portables, mobile and base radio replacements, $20,000. Animal kennel, $20,000. Information technology town hall generator, $135,000. DPW, Ford F-450 with SS dump body plow and sander, $54,928. Six-wheel dump truck with plow, $120,000, $250,000. Design and replacement of DPW boiler system, $100,000. Southbridge Public Schools, lease purchase of 2 vehicles, 3rd year of the lease, $43,432. Emergency roof and repairs, Easter Road School, Charlton Street School, West Street School, others as needed, $100,000. Master plan study for elementary school in Cole Ave, $200,000. Interior repairs, including painting, handrails, and doors, all schools, $140,000. And electronic visual aid displays, projectors, monitors, $160,000. Is there a motion?
Motion vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Councilor Ryan.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we cut out the $200,000 for the master plan study of the elementary school in Cole Ave.
I second the motion.
Okay, motion is second. Discussion. Go ahead, Councilor Ryan.
If I can, this was a unanimous motion at the subcommittee, if I remember correctly, Councilor Steves. This was something that we all agreed to. We understand the need for it. This is, for me personally, this is not something I don't want to say we're not going to do it. This year, let's just wait. I'd rather take that money, put it towards something else, something maybe far more immediate that we need to get, and we can wait to do this study another year. That's my position. Thank you.
Councilor Lazo.
To the previous speaker, how did they sell the master plan? What was it for? We did a lot of district studies. I know Mr. Jovan and I, when we were doing the all study of all the different grade configurations and building use. And we haven't done it in a while on building use as a town, but how did it, what was the driving point to have a master plan for the old Cole Ave?
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilor Steves because he's the chair of that subcommittee, and then if you want to follow up, he did have his hand up, so Councilor Steves?
Okay, sure. The bulk of that particular proposal was actually aimed at the elementary schools, not so much Cole Ave. As I recall, and I don't have the minutes in front of me for that meeting at the moment, but as I recall properly, and I don't know if Dr. Villar is still there, he'd be the best person to answer the question. That particular proposal was, the idea was that looking at the issue of changing demographics and the slow decline of the number of kids in our school system, they were looking at the idea over the long term of whether or not it might be necessary to consolidate elementary schools and so forth. And they want to be able to look long-term to see if that might be necessary. It also, I think there was also some talk there of the underlying physical needs of the schools. And maybe even, if I remember correctly, the idea that whether or not they would want to propose building a school at some point. But I think these were all very much up in the air, and they wanted to look at whether all of these things might at some point be necessary.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add, I have one thing to add to that, and that part of the discussion was that there's around Cole Ave was the viability of that building and the continued use of that building. It's been discussed for years whether or not we should continue using it.
Sure.
The receiver has made, not just, to be fair, not just at that meeting, but in years past, that he wants to examine the viability of that building. My opinion is, I agree. I think we should. Not right now. Let's wait a little bit longer. We have more important priorities as a town. I figure let's tackle those first, and then we can look at a master study later.
I agree, and I thought that if anybody was going to study it, I thought maybe the town would study it. We have a shrinking population in the school district. I don't understand they moved the administration out of there, moved it to the high school because there is more space up there. So for myself, I was thinking more on the lines of, utilizing the building or selling the building for other reasons, but this surprises me, and I will be voting against that, or with the cut.
Councilor Jain?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the first step in applying for the rehabilitation funding from the state to have a study? Don't you need a master study in order to go to the state and say, we'd like to apply for funding for various repairs or renovations or that sort of thing?
Councilor?
No, you don't. If you go into a building project, yes, you do. But a project meaning, in other words, a total renovation of a building. My point is, we have a shrinking district that they're going to be utilizing that building less. So why would they study it? The town of Southbridge should study it, and if it needs to be moved on or got rid of, which we have talked about selling it. We've talked about a charter school. They want to come into Southbridge. We have a tremendous amount of students that go to Sturbridge 1 through 5, and now they're looking for space. They're looking at Wells, but the Wells was already into another deal. And there would be nothing better for Southbridge to have a charter school in competition with quality of education with our regular ed school in the town of Southbridge. And this way it would give students choice. They still could play sports for the town, school, they could do all the same things. It's an interesting concept, but I think we should look at it from the town side. I don't see them doing a building project as a school department. I see the town doing, because we are the owners of the building. They are the tenants, and we are the landlords by design.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. You all set?
All set.
Councilor Steves?
Just two quick things. One is that one part of this particular item that seemed really excessive is the cost. Because as I recall, when we did our townwide master plan, it was 70 or 80,000, not 200. And granted, that was a few years ago, but I can't think it jumped that much. And the other issue, to take a bit of an issue with what Councilor Lazo just said, I personally am not in favor of putting a charter school on a building. I don't want to see, you argue the argument of competition, but what that ends up doing is sucking more money out of our public schools when they're already in desperate need now. So I'm not in favor of that, but that's beside the point.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Thank you. Councilor Marquardt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Are we going to continue making cuts to this, or are we going to vote on that first?
Right now, we have a motion on the floor
Okay.
and a second to cut to 200,000.
All right.
You
So
have
we're
anything
just
to that
voting
point?
on that only? Okay.
Right now, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I have more suggestions.
Okay. So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the general government meeting due to family issues, but I'm in agreement with Holden on this 200,000 right now. Having served with my colleague, Councilor Lazo, on needs assessments and all that, I think I would love to see it done, but I would like a little bit more discussion with the school department about how maybe we can form a committee, council, and some other community members to take a look at this, at the school district as a town side, though, as a town-appointed type body. I'd have to research how We did the school needs many, many, many years ago, but that's basis for further discussion, because I know I have spoken to Dr. Villar about this whole concept about we really do have to take a look at the buildings and how they're configured and what do we do and how do we, you know, do we do another demographic study type thing? So I think it's a little cart before the horse. So further discussion with the school department. So I would be in agreement to just to hold off on that right now and have further discussion, maybe put the money into stabilization or something that we could pull back out when we find time what the town costs could be. Councilor Levin?
Just to add to that, the thing that's confusing me is if the school department comes to the council and says, we have needs for more space, they don't appoint the building committee or the assessment committee. We do. That's why seeing on the school side budget, I'm looking at it going, no. If you have needs, you say, we have needs. I'll give you an example. We had an alternative program. School committee came to the council, council put it in the AO. It was a failed program, we lost $1 million. It wasn't a good idea. But the council had control over the funding of the school buildings because we were the landlords and we didn't have space at the time. Since we've done the new high school, middle high school, with all the fields, all of a sudden, you know, we didn't want to get rid of Southbridge High because we didn't know if we were going to get a bulge, might have been another elementary. It can never be a high school but because of the certification of what a high school has to be, the criteria. So we didn't want to get rid of it when we got done with that because we studied all the buildings, all grade levels. And as the chairman has said before, a lot of time has passed. Use of buildings, is it useful? Is it worth it? Do we need it? That's a council decision. This is kind of in the wrong place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the removal of 200,000? Are we voting to put it anywhere, Karen? Do we have to vote to put it anywhere, or does it remain in free cash because it's appropriated from free cash?
I would say either here you could change the purpose, but also a couple agenda items further, there's a vote from free cash to the stabilization fund. So I would recommend that anything that might be removed from here be put in there, and then a purpose can be determined in the near future.
Okay, so if we vote to remove it, it would just stay in free cash for right now? And
That
then
would
we
be
could just
correct.
amend that item? Would that be
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I guess we'll take a roll call on the amendment.
The motion to cut the 200,000 from the $100,000 from the capital
Okay,
request
so
for the school
I would
district
just
for the master study.
to make it clear, vote to amend the original appropriation and to remove the master plan study for elementary school in Cole Ave in the amount of $200,000.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
And there was a second. Do you accept that as a friendly amendment? Okay.
Yes.
Roll call on the amendment.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
And Counselor Dow?
Okay. Any further discussion? Council Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. During the General Government Subcommittee meeting, the fire department's portable, mobile, and base radio replacement, there was no recommendation on that. And on the interior repairs at the school, interior repairs, including painting, hand railings, and doors, all schools, that was reduced from 140,000 to 100,000. My concern was that some of these things in that item are really should be part of their maintenance budget, not on this free cash capital budget. So what I would like to do is take the fire department portable, mobile, and base radio replacement of 20,000 and 40,000 from the interior repairs for a total of 60,000 and put it towards showers for the fire department, upgrading the showers at the old fire department. Thank you. That would be my amendment. Thank you.
Is there a second on that? Is there a second?
I didn't understand
The reason I wanted to do that is because there's been a lot of talk about how the showers over there are not adequate, so I would like to take that money and put it towards upgrading the showers. Thank you.
Mr.
There is
Chairman.
no second on that, so.
Well, I was seconding for the point of discussion.
Okay.
I just don't see where it's our job, without having a request from the chief, to tell him to go build a shower. I think that the chief has to come forward and do a little homework on that before he asks for the money. I know what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you that there might be other priority over there. But the toughest thing about budgeting is when a department head doesn't request, we can't force a request on them. I've never done that before. Maybe we can. I don't know. I don't think so. Go ahead.
Councilor
He's not
Ryan?
requesting showers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just want to talk about the comment that there was no recommendation. I made that motion to not make a recommendation because I knew I was going to be making the recommendation to cut money out, and I wanted to have a discussion on the truck that they're going to need. And I don't know if Paul looks like he's online, if we could allow him to discuss that, because he brought that up during the meeting, and I would like to have him discuss it for all the councilors about what his proposal was.
Okay. So first off, there's a motion and a second to cut 20,000, 40,000 to put showers in, or to contribute to showers in the fire department. So I would guess I would take a vote on that, and then you can make your motion or whatever you want to do on the second one. Councilor?
Yeah, Councilor Steves.
Councilor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this is a question through you to the chief or deputy chief. Do you actually have the space to build in a couple of more showers down there? Where would they go?
Before we get into a long discussion about fire station, I think it's inappropriate to have that motion here based on the individual that raised it, who is chairing a vote no committee. So, but I think when you do that, you have to talk about all the plumbing codes, everything else that has to be done in that building. It's a lot of work. You have all kinds of codes. The minute you do that, you're going to upgrade codes. So I don't want to get into a conversation about showers in the fire department. I get the intent on that, but that is a bigger discussion that would require a lot of homework. To Councilor Lazo's point, that is no different than what a former manager did here, would just look at a report and say, I'm going to throw 50,000 to here and 40,000 there without getting quotes. It's the cart before the horse. I get the intent, but we had the motion and the second on that. And if there's no more further discussion on that amendment to transfer, I'll entertain a roll call.
Well, I would like to know why was it inappropriate for me to raise that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying it's inappropriate. I'm just saying you're throwing money at something you don't even have a design on. Usually what happens is with a bathroom renovation or something like that, there would be an account created. In other words, it would be a project line item, bathroom repair. There would be the chief and the plumbers and the people that would be working on it would be coming forward saying, this is the design and this is how much it costs. We're throwing money at a problem we don't even know how it's going to cost. What if it costs less? What if it costs more? What if the town passes the fire department and we're going to build another shower in the old fire department when they're building a new one? There's just too many loose ends on it, and I'm not voting in favor of it because I don't think it's been planned out as far as schematics or design. I usually see a schematic, a design, and then you go forward with appropriation.
Thank you.
Well, that's a capital plan.
Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, the roll call on the amendment.
Councilor Lazo?
No.
Councilor Marquetti?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
No.
Councilor Steves?
No.
Councilor Adams?
No.
Councilor Catrona?
No.
Councilor Daniel?
No.
Councilor Dow? No. And Councilor Jovan?
No. Councilor, she wanted to make a motion first, and then I'll defer to you.
If I may, could we, I would like to have a discussion Just trying to get to the exact line item, DPW. I want to say it correctly. On the pumper truck, I would like to have a discussion on that and possibly funding that out of some of the free cash we have saved. And if we could, Mr. Chair, allow the Paul to give Chief Normandin his comments as he did at the subcommittee meeting.
You need a motion for discussion purposes.
Okay, I make a motion to.
I'll second that.
She didn't state her motion, Councilor Steve, so can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we fund the pumper truck lease through the capital budget.
Is there a second
I'll second that for discussion.
for discussion? Okay. Mr. Town Manager? Councilor Lazo, you had
Thank you,
your hand
Mr.
up.
Chairman.
Oh, hold on. You had your hand up, or you all?
Procedurally, I was looking at this as if the councilors are going to vote to cut something, make a motion to cut it, that creates the discussion. If you don't want to cut it, vote no. If you want to cut it, vote yes. And then whatever we cut out stays in free cash in a simplistic way. But to turn around and say, I want to take this money and create some other capital item, I think is a little over the top without the department heads putting in for it. Don't spend the money. What's in front of us is capital improvement.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, and then Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The capital budget that we put forward was something that we worked on for some time before it was presented and sent to subcommittee. We looked at this. I met with the chief. I met with him subsequent to the subcommittee meeting. I still do not recommend going forward with the pumper truck at this time. You know, we're trying to rotate everything in as needed. There was a question about a lease. You've heard from Melissa Zawadsky, our treasurer, who would tell you if we were going to do something like that, we would be best served by,
please. Go ahead.
by bonding this. You know, not everybody gets everything in a particular year when it comes to capital. We had a long conversation about a lot of the vehicles that are currently on this list. We were trying to put things through the USDA grant. At that time, originally, the fire department was looking for the brush truck. We've settled on a series of items, and that's what we presented, and that's what we think is the best plan going forward. And I would respectfully request that the council keep that in mind. We are not looking to push this too far off. I understand that they have an older reserve truck and they want to get a new pumper, but to the point that was made earlier, some of these vehicles, as many of you may know, have to be custom built to put into this facility. The way those doors with the stone and everything. So in my conversations with the chief in the past, I'm not sure this specific pumper, but a lot of those trucks are made specific to fit into that particular building. And to Councilor Lazo's point, if we have a ballot question, depending upon the outcome, that may dictate what type of fire engine you may need. I personally would like to see that we hold off 1 year. We also have to be looking at an ambulance, but I don't think if we're going to be going forward and looking at a new form of how to do capital planning here, that we should be adding things in at the last minute after we've spent some time going forward and having discussion and trying to put together what we believe is a thoughtful plan to add something when we've had councilors say that we're spending too much money. We're going from $20,000 to looking at a $580,000 vehicle right now. And I know you've mentioned lease, but again, I will reiterate that our treasurer has said leasing is not the appropriate way for something of this size and that we'd be better off bonding.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will also bring up that this council has already set the precedent to do leasing when they approved the leasing for the school department, first with the tablets and now with this vehicle, the truck that's here. So, my point is we cannot just pick and choose which departments get to set which precedent and which ones do not. If we've set this precedent, I think it's only fair, since the chief brought it up to us at a subcommittee meeting, saying this was a dire need, to give him the time to discuss that need and let him make his case. It's not a last-minute thing. We talked about this at the subcommittee. You knew about it. You said you met with him since. This is
And I
not a
told him,
last-minute
no,
thing. This
it
is
is not
something
the
that
right
came up. We
time,
needed to
Councilor
have a
Ryan.
I'm sorry, Mr. Manager, I do have the floor. I would like to allow the Chief Normandin some time to speak to the full council and discuss his proposal. That's it. Thank you.
Councilor Lazo had his hand up now.
Not to be the process and procedure guy. Mr. Town Manager, question to you. Did you sit down with the chief and talk about this?
Yes, we had a conversation. We had one shortly after. He came over to see me about a couple of issues. We talked about it at that time. And then he did come to me on Friday to say, what will we do if this comes up again? And I just said, I cannot support it at this time. But we did have a thoughtful discussion about whether or not we could do it at a future date. I think we could do it at a future date.
So your recommendation is not to do it at this time?
Correct. I'm standing by the original capital plan. I'm not taking it at this time.
Thank you.
Most?
I just want to say that it's not about the precedent for the lease as much as it is the cost. This is a financial terms. And just because we've done it before doesn't mean it's the best decision for Southbridge. And I just want to say that you can make term payments in a different way that are not leases. And it's all about the payment plan. And you shouldn't focus on the payment plan. You should focus on the cost of the project as a whole. And if the council would review the announcement that we sent out earlier today regarding the funding that we did for the $13 million, there were several smaller projects in that. And while we estimated the cost to be very similar to the lease cost, because of the premiums that we received and the way we structured the loan, the cost of the overall borrowing is significantly less and closer to 1.5% interest over the total cost of the loan versus the 3.25% that the chief is proposing. And so I'm just saying that it's not about a precedent of a lease or not a lease or what department gets what. It's about thinking about what's best for Southbridge, how can we manage the cost, and being wise about spending our money.
Thank you. So, Chief Norman?
Good evening, everybody. It's 9:53 by my clock, so thanks for the floor. Obviously, Councilor Ryan has brought this back up to the table. At this point, the truck that we are trying to replace is a 1989 vehicle. It's definitely seen its due. Costs for repairs are definitely much more than they have been because of its age. A lot of things have to be fabricated to make this truck continue to go. Currently, right now, we have about almost $8,000 worth of tires to put on this vehicle. As what Melissa has just said, and I just want to backpedal a little bit to the history, at the subcommittee meeting, Denise Clemens brought up the fact that even though it was not funded by the town manager's proposal, she brought up that there was a package that I had put together in the original budget package, which included the leasing. Subsequently, obviously, I've done some research with Melissa also in regards to the debt exclusion that she talked about. I do agree that we can probably do it better than leasing. I don't want to be going back on my words with Councilor Ryan, but just hearing tonight, this is not a dead issue. I still would like to continue to get the $20,000 that we need. The truck is still going to get $7,000 worth of tires, and it could be gone in a year or two. But the safety is the most major factor with that truck. We got to keep it on the road, as I mentioned before. There's a need to have 3 pumpers in town because the ISO rating will go down, and the insurance, homeowners insurance will go up if we don't continue to keep that 3 pumper series. It's like, very similar to 3 is the number for ambulances for us, for the amount of call volume we do. 3 pumpers is what we need. And another great point was brought up is, if this gets pushed to, down the road a little bit further, we possibly could have a new fire station, and we could build a pumper without having to build it to size, which increased the cost, as we've been saying over the many, many years of building fire trucks for the station. So I am really truly up in the air about it. We do have the need. You know, this has been great discussion. I think I'll bring on the one more point is, you know, in regards to, and I said this before, large purchases for the DPW and the fire department are continuous. They're in the essence of sometimes $5, $6, $7, $1 million for a vehicle to be replaced. We have to come up as a town, not only looking at leasing and or debt services, some sort of way that we can put a little chunk of money into the side savings to a royalties account or something else. We got to think outside the box because the cost of our vehicles are going to continue to go up. If we push this forward, this one truck next year, it's going to be $600,000. So, you know, I'm open for any comments or suggestions. You know, as we move forward, I am where I am, and right now the $20,000 for radios is something because that's an upgrade. Actually, that's not an upgrade. That is a program that we've been trying to stop for a couple of years because one radio for us is $4,000 for a firefighter. So, you know, this will get us 4 or 5, almost 5 radios for the 20,000, but we need to keep that program going, just like we do fire trucks every 10 years and ambulances every 3 to 4 years. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on it? There's a motion and a second, right? There was a motion for discussion purposes, but...
Second for discussion.
Okay. So is there a formal motion to do this?
She made a motion in order to have discussion, so.
Yeah.
If it seems like there's not the will at this time to do it, I'll withdraw my motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Council Marquez?
the general government did reduce the interior repairs at the school by 40,000, so could we put that into free cash?
If you make a motion to
I'll make the motion, we put 40,000 into free cash from
I'll second that.
the Southbridge Public Schools interior repairs, including painting, hand railings, and doors, all schools, was reduced from 140,000 down to 100,000.
And there was a second on that. Any discussion?
Second.
No, there was a second already. Any further discussion? Mr. Town Manager?
I was a little surprised that evening by that particular move, and I had asked, I believe it was the subcommittee member Clemens who had made the amendment to take it from 140,000 down to 100,000, and I asked why, and they said, Ms. Clemens had basically said 100,000 sounded better than 140,000. There was no real rationale for it other than to knock down what I believe was Dr. Villar's request for $140,000 to do that. So absent any better explanation this evening, I would just encourage you to keep the number as is.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Council Marquez.
the explanation that I'm giving is that a lot of these repairs should really be in their maintenance budget and not in the capital budget. That would be my explanation for cutting it down to 100, cutting $40,000 out.
And how did you come to the 40? I guess that's what I want to know.
Because when you're doing interior repairs, painting, handrails, and doors, that's a maintenance issue. That's not a capital plan. I mean, to me, a capital budget, if you need a truck or you need a new police vehicle, things like that, and an animal kennel, but what they've got here is just repairs, maintenance repairs. This is general maintenance, and I don't think it belongs in capital improvement, your capital budget, that's all. So I think that was the rationale. Maybe Ms. Clemens, I don't want to speak for Ms. Clemens, but that would be my rationale.
Council Adams?
I do, thank you, Mr. Town Manager, for refreshing my memory on that one, since I watched the video. Yeah, that was not I guess a good reason to cut just 40,000 because the number sounded correct. But if that's the case, then we take that 40,000 and give it back to the school to put it in their budget then for maintenance. I mean, is that what we're saying here now?
Putting into free cash, right?
I don't know. I mean, the money would go to free cash, yes.
What I'm saying is if we're going to take that 40,000, and I agree with you, Councilor Marchetti, then give it to the schools for the maintenance. So why can't we do that? That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think the same thing, we just turn a circle, so let's keep that. Because you take the 40,000 from here, you're gonna do it for maintenance, same thing.
But they already have a maintenance
Yeah, but
budget.
maybe they don't have the money, that's
And
why.
it's
they're
in the
asking.
line item, I think, but the maintenance budget.
Council Steves, you had your hand up? No?
No, I just wanted to comment that I can't speak to Councilor, to Madam Clement argument either, although I did just quickly email her to let her know that we were talking about this, so I don't know if she'll pop on and be able to maybe explain herself. But, I mean, we did vote to take it out, so I don't have a problem with that.
I'm just going to go on my experience as a maintenance lead and custodian. I was the lead custodian maintenance at a school system in Brimfield. And if we went out to paint, we had to contract out for that, and we had to pay prevailing wage. So I don't know what the scope of their painting may be. If their painting scope is, hey, we're going to paint all these hallways, that's more extraordinary than what the normal maintenance is, then you have to pay prevailing wage. It stinks that you have to pay prevailing wage to have the painter that you pay to paint your house, that you could have the same painter, but you're paying prevailing wage for that job. Council Ryan, then Council Lazo.
To Councilor Adams' point, I don't think we could specifically put that in the maintenance budget because that would be changing the line item of the school department budget, which we cannot do. So if we were to do what he was suggesting, it would have to be procedurally done through by just increasing the general fund amount by that much. We couldn't just put it in there. And then he could technically take that and just do whatever he wants with it because it's just put into the general fund. So if the council wants to keep it in there for maintenance, I would just recommend, my personal belief would be just recommend keeping it there instead of going through that whole minutia, that whole process to not even know if it actually gets spent on maintenance later.
Okay. Council Lazo.
Half of it, I believe, Mr. Marquetti is correct. And if I could refer to the finance director, there was always an equation that we used to use that what identifies capital. I think, Jack, you remember there used to be like $10,000 and it has to last over 5 years. I don't know if there's an equation like that where we used to say, what constitutes capital? It has to last 10 years, 20,000, or whatever. But it had a dollar value and a longevity to it when we were on committee in the early days, which when you talk about painting, we have a full-blown maintenance department, okay? I mean, full-blown, we used to have a full-time painter. And the maintenance department always takes care of the painting in-house. So when I see a kind of a generic with a lot of stuff like painting, handrails, doors do last, 5 or 10 years, and they do qualify for capital. I don't think the painting does, but that's maintenance, maintaining. So I think, cutting the $40,000 out, put it back in free cash. I don't have a problem with that. If there's a maintenance problem and any more maintenance money, I'm also going to remember this. As Mr. Councilor Adams said, they're going to need the money. I mean, they're maintaining the building. That's part of the deal. We are the landlords, they are the maintainers of those buildings, except the big projects like roofs. That's capital improvement. Good.
Go ahead, Council Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Councilor Ryan, thank you for the clarification on that one. I'd say the same thing with Councilor Lazo. I mean, if you take it out, we go ahead and throw it in stabilization, and if they come to us later on and say we need this amount of money to paint or do the railings or whatever it may be, then it'd take 2/3 vote to get it out and give it to the school department.
Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment to reduce the 140 to 100,000? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Marquetti?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
No.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Adams?
Yes.
Councilor Catrona?
Yes.
Councilor Daniel?
No.
Councilor Dow?
No.
Councilor Jovan?
Yes.
And Councilor Lazo.
Yes.
And I would just ask that the school department comes back, that's all. I'd like, get some quotes and see what it is.
Motion passes.
Right.
I
All
do
right.
have one more question,
Yep.
and that's about concerning the lease purchases of 2 vehicles. Why don't we just buy those vehicles? Why are we still leasing them? Are we locked into that or something?
Yeah.
Seems like a waste of money.
Yeah, it's the 3rd year of the lease, so.
All right.
We'll own them afterwards,
Okay.
so, but. Councilor Steves? Did you have anything?
I was actually going to make a motion to amend the items for the Ford F-450 and, which was the other one? And the cruisers, to say, that we get them only if we actually get the USDA grant that we were talking about at the time. Because they were to be funded by the USDA grant.
They're partially funded.
They're partially funded.
This
I'm
is
sorry,
the-
you're right, they're partially funded by the grant, you're right.
So this was the partial funding, is that?
The items as listed here, my recollection is the cruisers would cost significantly more than the 40,
Right.
roughly 41,000. The difference will be made up based on the USDA grant application that was submitted. And they have led us to believe that we will be getting that funding. And what I'm hearing Councilor Steve is saying is he would just like some contingency language put in there.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then so I just have a question, I guess, for the finance team. So if say that funding doesn't come through, do you come back to council and say, hey, I want to amend to
We
do
would
that?
seek it either, now that it's going into stabilization, we would
Come
likely
back.
be seeking the difference to ensure that we purchase these vehicles, because these are all items that we were looking at. We bundled those specifically to save some money.
Okay. So there's a motion just to amend to add the caveat for there was 2 DPW vehicles, though. There was the 6-wheel dump truck, correct? The Ford F-450, right, and the police cruisers.
Yeah.
Okay. So the amendment is contingent upon successful
Funding.
Receipt of the USDA
receipt of the
grant.
funding,
Yeah,
right,
from the USDA.
DA, okay. So there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on that? What? Karen?
I'm not really sure that we can do it that way, because either we have to vote the money there or not. I don't think we can make it contingent upon it. I mean, if anything, we'd be looking, we can come back, if for some reason they're not funded, then we could,
List the rest of them out.
I don't know, I
Can we
just
just
think
say,
that's an
instead
odd
of
way of
con-
doing it. I just,
Instead of contingent, can we say pending approval of? No?
I don't like that either.
Hold on.
It's just,
Hold on. Let's go. Council Ryan, then Council Ryan.
Could we, just jumping off that point, could we say pending acceptance of the grant? Because we have to accept it anyway once it comes through, right? We have to accept the final awarding of the grant?
That's true.
Council Ryan?
I thought we voted this.
We did vote the grant and everything.
You
but-
voted the grant,
Right.
so if the grant doesn't come in, I think the last vote was the vote, that you all voted to go
Yeah.
for this grant to use the capital money.
And if there's not,
And if it doesn't come in, you're not,
you're not getting it. You have to come back with an
Right, I
adequate
thought
funding.
the first vote was pretty clear.
Yeah, I don't think will you withdraw your amendment?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
I
understand-
Just kind of clarification through you to Karen. So if we don't throw this contingency language in, if I understand it, is this funding would be our share of the grant money, our match, right?
Correct.
Correct.
And if we don't get the grant, we won't be spending it.
right.
They'd have to come
Or
back.
you'll have to come back to do something else for it.
Mr.
Some
Town
other
Manager?
funding source, if it's really necessary.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more complicated. If we don't get the grant, we're going to have to come back here, because I concur with Ms. Harnoy, we need to vote this as is. If we don't get it, then we have to come back and have a discussion, because what we were really doing was a buy three, get one free. So if we don't get that money, you know, there's an additional vehicle that we looked at getting based on the offset of that grant. So we may have to make a further determination of which of those 4 vehicles we want to really go forward this year, unless we want to take additional monies out of stabilization.
Makes sense.
And I think that, to that point, I think what Council Steves is looking for is, and I think in good faith, you know where the feeling of the council is, they want the grant, you get the vehicles. Don't order any vehicles till you get the grant. That's all.
Are you all set with that, Counselor? You withdraw your amendment?
Yeah, okay. I'll withdraw.
All right.
On a different line?
Okay, go ahead.
On a different line, just a question to the manager. $135,000 says information technology town hall generator. Can you explain that? Is it to do a study?
So what we're looking to do, Mr. Canoyer, who's been here on previous occasions, we do not have a backup generator for town hall. I wasn't sure, I didn't see him in the shadows, so there he is. But this is essentially a backup diesel generator for emergency purposes, and I'll let him continue.
Yeah, that generator has been part of a discussion for probably about 7, 8 years, and it was in the capital plan, and it was always being put off as a lower priority in individual years. In fact, it was in my 2024 request. So when we've had power failures in the past, the town hall went down, and the computer systems would go down. We've now a lot more in the cloud, so that kind of relieves a little bit of that impetus. But COVID really shows, and some other emergencies showed the necessity of moving it forward. In fact, there was talk about making this into an emergency center as well. And and one last thing, when we were talking, I believe, last year about our 6-year capital plan, this was in the 2024 plan, and the council at the time asked to try to move this forward, accelerate the time, and that's one of the reasons it's here.
Thank you.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was going to say the same thing. You guys are in the cloud now, which is a great thing, but now your laptops, if you utilize your laptops, do they have their own, I want to say VPN, own ability to have its own wireless system in it? I mean, does it already have that built in? Are we already paying for this, or is it just a laptop with no way to get to the internet if the system goes down?
No, the laptops we have, if we're working remotely, you can get to the internet, you can get to the cloud, you can get into a lot of our cloud-based programs, but you can't here. This building would be down. All of our servers here would be down for a lot of our local applications, as well as having the building accessible to the public to conduct business and emergency operations. So
maybe to clarify to Mr. Canoyer, if your laptops that you have purchased through whatever sources over the time period don't have the ability, unless there's a wireless signal going through, to get on wireless itself, correct?
No, they do. The laptops all have the ability to go wireless. They could be used from a remote location to our cloud-based applications, but not to the applications that are based here. And in fact, a lot of the laptops we use, the town managers, that's his primary computer, the finance director, her laptops where the docking station is their primary computer here. Town clerk, same thing, treasurer, the same thing. But that means they can work remotely on some programs, but not here if there's no power here.
I think that's what I was trying to say, not here. Because if your power is down here, you're not going to get that signal whatsoever, so you're going to have to send everybody home anyways.
Yeah,
or to another area.
Unless there was power here, which in an emergency, that's what we're trying to deal with.
Councilor Laza?
Again, with all due respect, I think this is a nice to have, not a have to have. We have a community center with a generator. It's utilized with COVID. COVID came in, boom, we started utilizing that facility. Our police department has a generator. We used our old high school as a shelter at one point during a tornado that went through, and we had generators up there. We have other buildings in other locations, and with technology the way it is, where this whole having a meeting from your home and stuff, I don't think this is a priority, and I'd like to make a motion at this time to cut the 135 out and put it back into the free cash.
Okay, motion and second. Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Ryan?
No.
Counselor Steves?
No.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
No.
Counselor Dow?
No.
Counselor Jovan?
No.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
And Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
I lost count of that. What is it?
4 yeses, 5 nos.
So motion doesn't carry. Is there any other discussion on the,
I'd like to make a motion to discuss the $100, the 100,000 DPW boiler.
are you making a motion to cut it?
Discussed it.
Oh, it's a discussion. Is there a second for discussion?
For discussion, yes.
Okay.
I'd like to know what's wrong with the boiler. They just show up right now. I never heard of it before.
Nope. This item has come up multiple times. My boiler system was put in the building when it was redesigned. It was out of date when it was installed. It is no longer built. It is a 4-chamber boiler. One of the boiler chambers has already failed, so I'm operating on a 3-chamber boiler. If another one goes down, it won't heat the building. So I'm trying to be proactive. Yes, we've been operating on 3, but it can't be replaced in kind because it's no longer made. It's been researched by multiple companies to see if we could get a replacement, but the company is no longer making that boiler, stopped making it the day it was installed. So now we need to replace the whole boiler system if we're going to have it up and running.
Now you say it was discussed a few times. I never came through to any meeting I was on.
It came through, it's been discussed multiple times on capital budgets. So it's a capital item.
But right now you have heat, correct?
Yes, but what the issue is we have one chamber down. If another one goes down in the middle of the winter, we won't have enough heat to heat the building.
So you're saying you can't fix that chamber down?
You can't fix it. It's not fixable. It's a cast iron boiler. It has a crack in it. You have to replace the cast iron, and they don't make it anymore.
So you're going to change the whole entire system?
Yep.
And 100,000 is enough?
It's for design and then replacement.
So design and replacement?
Because it has to be designed because it's over a certain cost of an item, just like we had to do with the RMV. And it's going to require the same, it won't be the same footprint, so it's going to require some design of how the pipes go in and out of it and how the venting goes in and out of it.
So I might come back in the future and ask for more to be able to finish the project?
I don't even have a design yet. I have a budgetary concept number of 100,000, and that's where we're going.
So why we don't only ask for design and we see what we're going to find out and then we ask for
Because that means I have to wait another 2 years to actually fix the system, and it's already been down for 2 years.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to only approve 25,000 for design. And
You
then
don't
she
even
can
know what
come
the design
back.
cost is going to be.
I'm sorry?
We don't know what the design cost would be.
So I'm just giving you $100,000 and I don't know what you're going to put it to right now, either design or boiler.
You'll have the contracts when it comes in to know what it is. That's all I can say.
So there's a motion to reduce to 25,000. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I thought we were either taking it out and not putting it in, well, okay, I see, I'll second it.
I want to give her a chance. Tell me the design. Maybe you need 200,000, then we'll prove 200. Or we move it complete. What do you prefer?
No, I don't want to move it completely. I just, I'm fine. I'll take whatever you give me, but I'm telling you, if it goes down to 2 in the middle of the next winter, I'm going to freeze pipe, and then you're going to have a $500,000 problem, not a $100,000.
So can I just ask you a question? I think, I'm not going to speak for Councilor Dow. I know me personally, I would love you to have heat, but is it possible to, for this capital item, vote an amount for design costs?
Sure.
And come directly back to council and say, here's the design, this is the estimated cost, and then we go to stabilization and come back and say, okay, it's $150,000 to do this. I mean, we're in a time frame. I mean, I think if anything, this council over the last 3 years
No, I'm
has worked,
fine with that as long as
has worked very,
remember that
to be
this is-
proactive and move it.
This is something that we need to.
So how much do you think you would need to go out to design cost?
If you want to budget for design costs, for full construction design costs, I would budget closer to, I would probably do 30, maybe 35, just to be safe. I don't know what it's going to be, the design. I mean, I'm going to get quotes for the design, but
Yeah. All right, hold on. Okay, Council allows us to go up then, Council.
Mr. Chairman, whether we put $100,000 or $39,000, doesn't matter. Because in the end, it's going to be an account, and we might have to add to it or subtract from it. Myself, it's like money invested, put aside, just in case it blows. So for me, I'm in favor of the $100,000. I mean, here's something that is a danger, but we just voted $135,000 for a nice to have. Doesn't balance the books. The money's not going anywhere. Put it aside now on the recommendation, and then when the time comes, the design will come. If it's 25, 30, 35, then we'll know what the final number is. The money's not going to run away.
Okay, I understand. Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Councilor Lazo said it best. That's what I was going to say as well. Whether we replace it, this is a fire tube, water tube, boiler, I don't know yet, but you're going to be coming back to council for more, I'm sure, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Duff?
Mr. Chair, the whole idea is, this is the first time I see the 100,000. That's a last minute thrown in. You got to accept it. You have no choice. It never came in. I never see it in any meeting. I watch all the meeting. Maybe I missed one or so, but I never see on any meeting came up, you need a boiler. You just throw it there at the end.
I think you've just missed it because it's definitely been on multiple. It was brought up even in last year's and it wasn't funded. So it's only gone through capital items because we've been making it work. But that's because I felt like the appropriate places to bring it up during capital. I hoped and prayed we didn't lose another section of the boiler, for the last couple of years. So while we did research to see if we could find one, to tell you the truth, we were trying to find the replacement because that's my preference, but.
Okay.
So you are going to come back to us?
Yes, with
the
engineering
proposal,
proposals, yep.
and you have enough money to get the proposal done?
Yep.
And then after that, we will deal with the actual installation on another vote?
Yep.
I'm in favor. Thank you.
I'm losing track, I guess, because it's getting late. What was the motion in a second?
Councilor Dow made a motion, I seconded for discussion.
Discussion. We didn't have a formal motion. Is that correct?
Well, then he made another motion to reduce it to.
Okay, so that's what I need. What was that motion?
Yeah, that was a motion to reduce the line item to 25,000 made by him, seconded by Councilor Marquetti.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Steves?
No.
Councilor Adams?
No.
Councilor Catrona?
No.
Councilor Daniel?
No.
Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Jovan?
No.
Councilor Lazo?
No.
Councilor Marquetti?
Yes.
And Councilor Ryan?
No. Okay, motion doesn't carry. Any further discussion on this capital? This is why I only scheduled budget items tonight. If we had a regular agenda, we would never get through it all. All right, so I have a total of the amended, as amended, would be vote to appropriate, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, $955,128,000 with the following reductions. Removal of $200,000 from the master plan study for elementary school in Cole Ave, and a reduction of interior repairs to $100,000, which would be a reduction of $40,000, which is a total of $240. Is that correct? Did I miss anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Adams?
Yes.
Councilor Catrona?
Yes.
Councilor Daniel?
Yes.
Councilor Dow?
No.
Councilor Jovan?
Yes.
Councilor Lazo?
Yes.
Councilor Marquetti?
No.
Councilor Ryan?
Yes.
And Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 20, vote to transfer $45,000 from account number 001495-529000, snow and ice specialized services to FY 2021 DPW capital account to purchase a Ford F-350 pickup plow as per the capital plan.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
And Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Item 21, vote to adopt the town manager's 6-year capital plan FY 2022 to 2027. Is there a motion?
As amended?
Second.
No, this is the
Did we
capital.
amend the capital?
This is the capital improvement plan.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Sorry about that.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
And Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 22, vote to appropriate $175,000 from free cash to the stabilization fund. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
And that will be amended. I'll entertain a motion to
Mr.
amend
Chair?
that number to $415,000.
Yep.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Okay. That's correct, right, Karen? Did I add correctly?
415,000?
That's what I said.
Got it.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call. On the amendment, roll call on the amendment.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
And Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Vote, motion to, was there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
And Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 23, vote to appropriate $1,045,000 from sewer retained earnings for the FY 2022 capital budget. Portable backup generator split with water, $45,000. Replace the sewer jet truck, $500,000. Phase 2 collection system evaluation, $500,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
And Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 24, vote to appropriate $645,000 from Water Stabilization Fund for the FY 2022 capital budget. Gatehouse roof and siding replacement, Upper 4 and Dennison Crossroads, $100,000. Portable generator split with the sewer department, $45,000. Water main improvements, clean and line and oil replacement, Gardner Street, High Street, and Worcester Street. Is there a motion?
So moved.
$500,000.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
And Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Motion carries. And that was a two-thirds vote. Item 25, vote to appropriate $687,553.98 from water retained earnings to the Water Stabilization Fund to transfer the remaining balance of the July 1st, 2020 certified retained earnings to the Water Stabilization Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
And Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
No.
Oh.
Council forum,
I
because
was gonna say, where
council
is it?
council forum is a regular form on the agenda. It was, I inadvertently missed it, may have, for space constraints, I don't know. But I will start with Councilor Steves tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had two quick things. One is that I wanted to thank people for being part of the cleanup on this weekend. And it was nice to see about 70 or 80 people from what Andy said showed up to help clean up our town and showed enough support for our town. I think that's a great thing. And I'd like to take a quick second for those people who decided that they thought it was a great idea to throw grandma's old destroyed rocking chair down the side of a hill, take it home and get rid of it the proper way, rather than doing stuff like that, and trash bags and other stuff like that. So because you are hurting your community and your neighbors by doing stuff like that. So thank you for helping people, for the ones who did. And the other thing I want to point out is that I'm also a member of the Grange, and we are going to be doing a summer concert series starting on June 5th. But that's going to be starting at 6 p.m. over at the Grange in Dudley. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to thank the town manager for putting the explanation on the fire station cost on the website. I do think, though, that it might be better if it was just the text, the wording was put right on there. We spent a lot of money on that website. I think we can do better than just a PDF, but I do appreciate the effort to put it on there. Thank you very much. Second of all, I've mentioned it in the past about the soil erosion down there by the common. Sometimes I drive by there, it's the piles of sand that's being used for construction. Sometimes it's covered, sometimes it's not. A lot of sand gets blown off of there. And I know that some people have been complaining about the sand coming on their cars and when they're walking and things like that. So I would like to see that better taken care of. Also, thank you for responding to the constituent who called today about car radios in town blasting away. It is getting pretty bad. They even go by my house here, the whole house is rattling. So I do understand what you're saying about what it takes to try and control that. But I do appreciate you looking into it, and the police chief as well. Thank you for the explanation on the water and sewer bills. Wasn't quite sure what that all meant. I got a better understanding of it now. Thank you very much. I would like to see, now that the budget is over, that if we could return to just discussion on the injured on duty firemen and policemen and help with their prescription coverage. I don't know what we can do. I get what you're saying about how covering them, but changing the split would be too much on the insurance. I understand that, but I would like it if we could get that back on Councilor Steve's subcommittee so we can at least discuss it and you can take a look at it further. And finally, I wonder if there's been any progress on the charter cable contract.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We are continuing to work. I've been responding to the Department of Telecommunications. I've let them know that we have put our best foot forward. We've reached out to Charter Communications. I did receive an email last week from Mr. Marr, who is the counterpart on the other side of the table, who said that he's waiting on his transcript from our public hearing on the cable from probably 2 months ago, that they want to review what was discussed about our assessments of needs, and then once he can do that, he'll come to the table with us and our council. We have met a couple of times with Ms. Clemens and I have met together, and with Jim and Max earlier on in. So we're ready, willing, and able on our side. That's really all I can tell you from our perspective. I did send a demand letter to them recently about getting the library drop fixed. Ms. Clemens, we went through some issues, and that was one thing she brought up, and we sent a demand letter over to them. And I know from Margaret Morrissey that they showed up right away and started looking to fix that. And so we're being proactive. We're just waiting for them. And it's my understanding, speaking to council, that the license will continue on a periodic basis, be it week to week, month to month, until we can get the matter resolved with them at the table.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things. This Saturday, there will be another concert at the Central Street Plaza. So that information has been pushed out through social media and other places. I think Councilor Steves had brought up Earth Day. I couldn't hear him really well, but I just want to say thank you to all the April and Andy for setting all that up as far as getting the town cleaned up. That day was, I believe it was over 60 volunteers that came out to help clean up the town. And Memorial Day, just, I promised the councilors I would send this out, but I'll just do it via email. But it's a change of the route. We will congregate over at the Common around 9:45 in the morning. We head over to, from that point, we will head over to the Gold Star Mother Monument, which is at the Rotary. We will commence the ceremony itself by 10 o'clock in the morning as the police cordon off the area. Well, from that point on, after a couple speeches and some music, we'll be moving up to the Honor Roll at Dresser Memorial Park. We'll have a few more speakers. We'll discuss a little bit about the initiative that I addressed to the town council a couple weeks ago. We will also be laying poppies for those Southbridge residents that passed away this calendar year, or this year, I should say. And obviously music from the high school band. And we do have the valedictorian from Southbridge High School who's going to speak as well, and a local veteran who's opening a business here in town as well. So we hope to see everybody. We should be done by no later than 11:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Catrone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing this evening. All set. Thanks.
Council Dell?
Thank you.
Council Rosen?
A couple of quick questions. One, Mr. Town Manager, if we could get Heather to look at Dresser Street. I don't know why. It's a newly paved road, and it looks like it's actually breaking at toward the locker room side of Dresser Street. Kind of a weird situation. I don't know what that is. I mean, she's here.
Is it the gas line? That's what
Well, we only did an overlay on that road, and it's the gas trench that you see coming through. So we'll look at put a crack sealing in on that, but when you do only an overlay and there's an old trench, it can happen, and that's what it is. It's the gas.
So are you saying the gas company did not compact properly?
The gas company uses sand when they do theirs, and sometimes the sand does settle after the fact.
Thank you. One other question, Mr. Town Manager. I heard that we're having a problem hiring dispatchers, and that we're paying firemen time and a half to cover the dispatch desk. And this, the whole consolidated dispatch concept was supposed to save money, but we're paying the same guys that used to answer the phone time and a half when it was the call to the fire station. Doesn't seem to me it's working very well.
So I've had a conversation with Chief Woodson a little bit about this, and I'm aware that we've had to use at least a firefighter to cover in the back. My understanding is there has been some turnover there. They're down a few people. I know that from speaking with the chief. Having worked in the past at police stations that have dispatch, these are high-pressure jobs. Not everybody's suited for them. I know that they get some people in. It doesn't work out. But I can continue to gather information from the chief and both chiefs and come back to you and maybe with some brief update or presentation as to what the plan is going forward to ensure that we have adequate staffing. So I do know, I can't say it was just recently, but I do know the chief had told me that he had one or two people who they got them trained and they were in there and just felt that it was too much pressure for them. So none of our public safety jobs, and they are public safety. They may not be out in a truck or a car going out, but they're handling just as much stress and anxiety because they have essentially victims and our first responders' lives on the line when they're taking those calls. So it can be stressful for them too. So, but I get your point, and I will talk to the chiefs about it.
Chief Woodson? Go ahead.
Thank you. There's a lot more behind that. We're budgeted for 9 full-time positions. We have 5 people working right now. And out of those 5, we have 1 that's out with COVID. We have another one that's out with a long-term medical issue. We didn't realize that it was going to have this kind of impact on this person's employment. We also had someone quit and walk away, several actually, So we're bringing people in, we're swapping them out. The candidates we have right now are, we'll say, par or subpar, and we're working to train them. Some people who have absolutely no training, we're bringing in because we think they have the potential to be kind of coached up and trained. So this is a struggle. This isn't unique. I say it about the police side. Finding good people is very difficult right now. Policing and dispatch, both equally as difficult, and it's going to be a struggle for the next couple of years. And communities in our area will say within close proximity make a lot more money dispatching, and they have a lot less calls. And even they're having a hard time finding people because it's a very difficult job. So we kind of had an emergency situation on our hands. I spoke with the manager, I spoke with the fire chief, and now we have firemen helping out with us dispatching paramedics, and the fire chief's still on this call because it's kind of like, here we are, we're at the Alamo, we have no other options other than closing the doors. So we were at the absolute last point where we could not run that operations center because no staffing, no employees, because of these medical issues, because of COVID. I got cops that are still out with COVID. We are about 10 people down on any given day, police and dispatch. We're working on it. I'm not complaining, but it got brought up tonight. So that's what's going on right now. That's the only reason why fire are in the house, fire being paid time and a half. And my understanding is, and the fire chief can comment on it, I believe that's all going to be reimbursed through COVID because the majority of our staffing issues, at least the emergent staffing issues over the next month or two, are because of COVID. So I don't know if that's a clear, clean explanation. I'll be happy to elaborate on it further, but it is a situation right now that I've never seen, never thought I'd see. And we're working through it, and I'm hoping to be over that hump by the time summer really starts.
Thank you.
You all set?
Yep.
Councilor Ryan?
I just have one. I'll save the rest of my update for next meeting. But I'm hearing a lot about mask restrictions being loosened, which they are in many places. However, when you're riding public transit, I want to let everyone know the TSA has ordered that the mask mandate stay in effect until September 13th. So if you are using any form of public transit, you are going to be required to use a mask until September 13th. So just because local and state mask mandates end, that does not end the TSA ordered mask mandate on public transit. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dan?
Councilor Steves?
I started with him.
All right. No, I have nothing tonight to say. The next meeting, I believe, is scheduled for June 7th, the day before the election. So Monday, June 7th, 2021, here in council chambers.
Thank you. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Roll call.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Yes.
And Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good day.